Hello, hello. All right, it's
right.
not heavy metal. It's not heavy metal.
Yes, it is.
Right, how's everyone doing?
It's heavy non-ferrous metal.
Everyone doing good?
Just to throw a random word in there.
Yeah.
Hi, Simon. Good to
It's
see you.
magnetic. It's almost magnetic.
Almost magnetic.
Right.
That's right. Almost
That's
a
cool.
magnetic opening theme song. Yes. It almost
Welcome,
attracts
everyone.
small pieces of metal. Yes.
Everything gravitates around us.
Yes.
Right.
Everything else. I attract every piece of matter in the universe. I do.
Everything revolves around Flutter. There you go. Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh dear.
Flutter's
Where are we going
abstract,
with
though.
this?
Flutter's
Right. I think
imaginary.
we're to get into the do's and don'ts, and then we'll get on with the show. Get your questions, as it says below in the chat.
Yes.
And we'll go from there. Right. Where's the next thing? Yeah, Randall.
Cool. All right. I guess it's my part. Okay. So be nice, be respectful, be constructive. We are chatting live on YouTube. I am watching that. I am watching that for questions, which we talked about a moment ago, and we'll talk about again in 2 more minutes. Don't post anything if it's adult, rude, or offensive. Just be respectful of people in this channel. Don't advertise or promote anything if your face is not on the screen. You cannot be promoting yourself. That's not what this show is about. The show is about getting your questions answered. So let's keep it unfocused. Don't spam. Don't post the same thing again and again. We do have ban hammers that will take care of that. So just don't taunt us. That's pretty silly to do. Also, if you ask a question and then you post the same question 20 minutes later, you have lost 20 minutes of your waiting time in line, because we will delete the first one and move to the second one. So do not repeat your questions. I repeat, do not repeat your questions, because we have seen the first one and we will see the second one, except if you included a URL in your question. Don't do that in any part of the chat. URLs are automatically blocked. The entire message is blocked. We don't even see it. So it's not even like we can help you correct on that. So be cautious of that. And harassment of any kind, again, not tolerated. We do have ban hammers, and we do make use of them very occasionally, thank goodness, on the show. But do have a good time. We are having a good time presenting this information to you. That's why we keep coming back week after week. And we're here again to basically chat together for 2, 3, sometimes 4 hours.
I'm not that long.
I has not in a while. You
Not
have
a while.
For shows. Oh, come
we have
on.
been known. We have been known to do that.
Yes.
Definitely have a good time, everyone.
Yeah, that's
and we'll do some quick introductions, and we'll get onto the show.
Awesome.
My name's Simon Lightfoot, Flutter Community Leader, CTO at Dev Angels London. You can follow me and on Twitter /X at Dev Angels London. Randall, please introduce yourself.
I'm Randall Schwartz. I am a Dart and Flutter Google developer expert, one of 10 in the US and about 140, I think, in the world. I lost count at the last meeting, but we get a lot of little faces on our monthly meetings. And that means I spend a lot of my time answering questions for y'all in like Slack and Discord and Stack Overflow and Reddit and all the places. No longer in Facebook, though, because I got bored following all those in there. I also attend a lot of virtual meetups from my home in Portland, Oregon. Like just yesterday, I was presenting in the Zurich, Switzerland Flutter meetup. So that was kind of fun. So I get to do that all the time. For this show in particular, I do have a very specific role in that I am watching the chat. I am watching the chat for items that begin with Q:. If you put Q: in front of that, I mark it so that we can see it and go back to it for you. And we will answer those questions in the order taken in general. Also, if you have suggestions for what you want to see on live coding, please feel free to introduce those with Q:. Maybe add like live coding or something next to it if it's sort of more that kind of a statement. That would be very cool. So that's it for me, I think.
We also have Danielle join us. Danielle, welcome back.
Hey, everybody. Yeah, sorry I missed. It's been a couple weeks since I've been here, I think. But yeah, hi, everybody. I'm Danielle Cox. I am the Flutter lead for a company called Artly. And actually, just Randall came. I gave a talk at Flutter Atlanta recently, and Randall came for as long as he could on that. That was awesome. So he really does go to the places from the comfort of his home and goes and checks out all these meetups. So that's really cool. I'm one of the organizers of the Flutteristas, which is something I'm very proud of. And yeah, that's pretty much me. So hi everybody.
We also have Raphael. Raph.
Hi, I haven't been here for 3 weeks, and let's see if I can speak. So yeah, I'm Raph. I'm doing some Flutter community stuff lately, Swift package manager stuff for various packages, and I'm here to have some good fun. So yeah,
Answering all your Flutter questions.
Yes, and thanks to you, we're covering what, 14 time zones, 13 time zones? Pretty crazy.
Something like that.
Yeah. Yes.
maybe.
Yeah.
Whilst we wait for some questions to come in, I got myself a new little toy. Have you guys seen one of these before?
Ooh.
It's a Game Boy, right?
It is an analog pocket, and it's a FPGA based handheld gaming device, and you can put whatever FPGA core you want on there. So I've got this running all the Game Boys, Game Gear, NES, all the original arcades. So all the stuff like Pac-Man and Gallagher and everything that Danielle has behind her, I can play on this.
Wow.
Maybe we even get this running Flutter. You never know.
It has
Everything's
pixels.
the run Flutter. Yes. Right. It does have pixels. Yes.
Exactly. For those that don't know, we do actually have a Patreon. So if you want to support the Flutter community and keep the show going, please support us on Patreon. That link will also go into the chat in just a moment. And don't forget.
And again, I'm seeing questions about the queue.
Yep,
So,
I'm just noting that now. Yes. Just tagging that now. If you have a question, put Q in front of it. Otherwise, we ignore it because you guys do talk amongst each other. How do you do that? Talk amongst yourselves.
Yeah.
Talk amongst each other, please. No. That's I'm a little goofy because my sleep count wasn't the greatest last night. So good old karaoke Wednesday or Tuesday nights does not help live streaming Wednesday mornings. Definitely not. Sometimes you all discuss amongst yourselves, and we don't need to know that. That's fine. I still read them anyway. But if you put Q colon, then we know it's definitely for us. And it goes, here we go, in the queue. You got to say it every week. It's got to be there at least once. Yes. All right. Did that. So, we got it. There we go. Thank you, Juan.
Yeah, thank you, Juan.
For complying with instructions there.
And in case you didn't notice, I did start up the game just to show that it's a real, not just about game. So.
Very cool.
It's all AI. It's all fake. So
yeah, that's right. Yes.
Continuously looping AI stream.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
Somehow you're green screen against something that runs down
if we don't get AI in the conversation somewhere, we get downranked on Google, I'm sure.
Must be.
Yeah.
Yes. I was having a conversation yesterday about the relatively recent way of being able to make an overlay at the right place on the screen by having the anchor that's shared and the link thing. Yeah. We did an episode on that, about 6 months ago, right?
Well, we've done it many times. Layer link and using target follower and target leader layer and the target layer.
Yeah. And it was funny because they were trying to do it the hard way. And I think it's the way you tried the first time, which is you put a key on it, get its render box, and then figure out how that's offset relative to you and local space and global space. All you really got to do is throw these two widgets into your mix and everything just works. So that's one of the things I answered and discussed yesterday. And I was happy that I've been on this show to talk about things like that, because it's funny how many questions I stumble across in my patrolling over the last 6 years that correspond a lot to the questions we answer here, because it's Flutter questions, questions that y'all have dealing with various issues. We get a lot of repeat questions here. It would be nice if we had some database, I guess, to
There is a database. There is a database, and
yeah.
our very own
Christian, right?
Christian, sorry, that's gonna be taken. Sorry, Christian. I'm sure he's watching. Has been making up on GitHub, where you can actually search the questions and find the it will take you to the video and the relevant offsets so you can hear the answer, which is pretty cool. I will have to get a link to that. And put it in the
that'll be good. Oh, a database. Oh, Juan, don't talk about Chat GPT here. If you're going to mention an LLM here, we're talking about a Google product called Flutter. So we should talk about another product.
It doesn't matter.
Gemini. Okay, Gemini. And Gemini kicks ass over Chat GPT any day anyway. I've played with them both. So I use Gemini Advanced to ask questions all the time. That's sort of my interface. Instead of Googling anymore, I just type whatever I want to type into Gemini Advanced. I use Gemini Code Assist in my VS Code. That's been quite fun. And of course, the occasional time I'm playing with IDX. IDX has the Google sort of advanced version of Code Assist built into IDX. The big difference being that Google Code Assist for VS Code can only look at your open files, whereas the IDX version is looking at your entire repo all the time. So that's kind of cool. So yeah, and I'm finding that of the ones I've played with, in terms of the large language models, I find Gemini has the best understanding of modern Flutter. So I think the rest of them are trained on much older stuff. And that's the problem with Flutter, is it has changed so much about best practices over the short time span of 5 or 6 years that a lot of older code has been indexed by these LLMs, and you get not current best practices when you ask questions of these LLMs. So be careful with that. Yeah, so that's mostly just filling up time so that we can get a few more questions in the chat. So we'll just keep plugging away here. If you have questions, ask them early. They'll get much more likely to be answered early. And so get your questions in now. If you have any questions, please.
One thing I might want to add to that, Randall, which is, and people would have heard this otherwise, is it's not just Chat GPT or whoever that's been trained on older data. I mean, if you're going to try to find Medium articles or YouTube videos or things like that, a lot of those are on older data too, because they were made back when that was the state of the art. And so that's something to also be aware of, is try to find when you actually go, because we're here to help answer your questions, but we do have a hope that you've done a little bit of look yourself first to try to see what's going on. And when you're trying to find out how to do something, it's good to try to find the more recent ones too. There's other ways you can balance out who you're trying to look for and stuff like that. But recent is also kind of a big deal because stuff has changed a lot.
I have a query set up. So like you can do shortcuts in your browser to say just a keyword and then it searches for something. One of my shortcuts is GUI for Google 1 year boundary. And that means it'll only return entries that are 1 year or younger. And I use that almost exclusively when I'm doing Flutter searches, just to make sure that I'm not finding older material on Dart and Flutter. So I highly recommend the same. And the way I got it is you figure out how you add those shortcuts to your browser. It's different for every browser kind of style. And if you do just like a normal search for something, you'll see the extras or something menu on Google. And one of those is time range. Just drag it down to 1 year and see how it encodes it in the URL and patch that in. But that's pretty cool. So being able to search just in the last year really helps, especially for videos. If you're looking for training videos, of which there are numerous training videos on Flutter in almost every language you probably can think of too. And this is really handy because some people learn a lot better from watching somebody do it step by step with a video than they do from me publishing a Medium article. So it's fine that people have different ways of learning. But if you're going to do that, please narrow it down to the last year, because Flutter has changed enough that you don't want to be learning about old stuff.
Can you imagine reading examples from Dart 1 and trying to make them work?
Ew. Yeah, that was pre all safety, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Everything
Ooh.
dynamic.
Oh,
Well, I mean, to go along with that,
Pure.
I mean, like, 5 years ago when we ended up getting the ability to do what UI as code and spread operator and stuff like that, that was
Oh, yeah.
2 dot something. Before that, the state of the art was you built your list by having a list and inserting stuff in and continuing on and stuff like that. And so you could see a tutorial that was very good for what it was,
yep.
and the code actually would still work, but it's not the way we do it now.
And people
Interesting enough,
got
it's
really good at map. People got incredibly good at map because they had to.
Yeah.
And it's like now I almost never write a map. I almost always do list with a builder
Yeah.
inside. It's so much
Yeah.
easier to read and write and understand. Unless it's a pipeline, and then of course I need a map, but it's okay.
Shall we get to some questions then?
We do have some questions. Yes, let me scroll back a little here and figure out what the first question looks like. There we go. First one I didn't understand at all, but I'll read it anyway. HTTP 1.2 server with upload download file endpoint during live coding session. Oh,
Let's make you a suggestion.
it's a suggestion for live coding, doing a server with upload.
So I
download
actually started along this journey, and I never finished it. So we could try and finish it on live stream. It's not something that simple, I'm afraid. But we could definitely give it a go. No reason why
even
not.
with Shelf does most of it, right? It's Shelf and plugins.
Yeah, no. So the problem is Shelf deals with the HTTP protocol itself.
Yeah.
The headers and body and giving you model structures that you can work with, but actually the serving of HTTP content and the actual serving of the requests and responses actually come from the inbuilt .io HTTP server.
Mm.
And HTTP 2 works differently, multiple streams over the single connection. And there isn't, strictly speaking, it supports HTTP 2, but there isn't like just an inbuilt dump this in, it just does HTTP 2. So that's what I was actually working on. So we could actually explore that some more. I really want to do it myself as well for some projects I'm working on. That's the reason why I started exploring it. And I was thinking we could like feed it back into a package or back into the Dart repo itself.
Okay. Well, I'll leave it on the
You can
list.
use server pod and it's built in.
Server pod, yeah, it's done.
Is it?
Right.
Does the server pod do HTTP2?
I think it is. That's
we should maybe explore that then.
Ooh, yeah, cool.
That's a good question.
Yeah, it was a great question.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rai, something like that.
Right.
Juan, here's Juan's question. Finally, prepended with a Q. Do you recommend compressing the files in Flutter or doing it on the server? Why would you compress it in Flutter?
I mean, the question here is, in what case are you trying to compress them? Why are you compressing the files?
Yeah.
And if I were going to make an oversimplified answer, I would say you want to compress it on the sender side so that it's compressed going across, when you're sending across network.
I mean, it all depends on what you're trying to do, right? So, for example, if you already captured an image or a video, there's very little that you can do to compress them to actually gain any benefit because they're already compressed, right? So, again, like a JPEG can be compressed at different levels, so it's up to you to resize and re-encode with a different compression level before you send it, right? A video is practically it's not, as I say, practically impossible. It's not, that's maybe the one word. It's impractical. That would be the better word to use. It's impractical to re-encode a video on device unless your app is specifically designed for around that, like video editor, for example, right? Like, because no one wants to sit there. They take a video. No one wants to sit there and wait for a spinner to go whilst it's re-encoding an entire video, which you don't know the duration of. It could be 30 minutes, and there's going to be some time to re-encode a 30-minute video on your mobile phone. So in those situations, there's things where you want to stream the content,
Right?
Or leave it already pre-compressed and just send it as is.
Well, and yeah, and you want to think about what's the power on the device that you're wanting,
Yeah.
How much battery you're going to use, how much other things you're going to use to do that versus in the game to send it.
It's kind of interesting. I'm thinking I always think from a mobile perspective, because that's like kind of my background. But actually, yeah, on a desktop, obviously the lines blur there, right? Because you've got the power on your machine to do that kind of stuff. It still takes time, but it's definitely more feasible than it is on a mobile phone, for example. But yeah, you normally want to, as Daniel was saying, you want to compress before you send. So if you are going to, for example, you're sending lots of metadata like JSON and things like that. If you're sending like a 1 megabyte JSON file, gzip compress that. Like it's going to drop down to hardly anything at all, like 100 kilobytes, 1/10 of the size, 1/5 of this, 5% of the original size even. To get that up to the server, you'll be surprised, and it's lossless, right? So you're going to decompress the other side and get it completely back to how you had it. There's been inbuilt gzip encoders in Dart and decoders as well. For example, if you're doing as the Ray was asking for earlier, like a HTTP server on the server side, there's just, you can enable compression, or you can add gzip encoders to your streams of data that you're sending back and forth. And as long as you add the right header to say it's compressed, then the client side would decode it. And that's standard HTTP. So you can look that one up.
Yes, I mean, so the bottom line is also you want to make sure you understand what it is you're doing. To know, what one of the people that works for me, Rona, she often would say on something like this, is worth the squeeze.
Say that again. You broke up. Say that again.
Oh, you're breaking up.
We lost you.
No. Oh, Atlanta's falling off the wire.
I'm sure she'll be back.
I hope.
Let's move on to the next question. So we're not.
Okay. Good. This one's an abstract question. How can we handle the state and with the best practice architecture for tons of feature apps? I would say carefully.
Hey man, I'm trying to decode this in my head.
Yeah.
I want to handle the state with the best practice architecture. Well, pick any architecture. That's fine.
Yeah.
Just not the one that we don't mention here. For
right.
tons of feature apps. But what do you mean by feature apps? Like
maybe tons of feature goes together. Tons of features, apps. Tons
of features in apps.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, it's like anything. Like just segment your state and manage it correctly, right? Like just separate your concerns, right? You're not going to have, for example, one piece of state that holds everything about all your features, because that's probably going to be too much. However, if your features are really simple and they only have maybe one variable each, then maybe one state class for your entire app makes sense, right? Just do what's practically and makes sense. If it smells like bad code, it's probably bad code.
Yep, maybe. All right.
If I ever think I've been super clever, it's usually bad code too.
Good idea. Good idea. Yes. All right. Yeah. How does Android Studio compare?
Sorry, before we jump on to the next question, I will just mention that last point that you have to remember when you look at code, you have to put yourself in the mind of another developer. How would they read it? Not knowing what you know. That's the best thing you can do, and that tells you if it's good code or not. Right? It's hard. It's easier said than done. But you can imagine, like, if I didn't know how this connected or how this thing was utilized inside the app, you don't have to have another developer come on board and work out how it's being used within the product. That's what a comment is for. That's how you better change your architecture or structure so that it makes sense, right? That's important.
And I guess one more thing I might throw in here is if you're talking about something like this, you're probably going to maintain multiple sets of state. You've probably got a state that tells you which of the feature apps is turned on, right? And that really doesn't need much more than that, to know, that you got access to this app or not. And then each app would probably maintain its own state, because it's that's going to be specific to it, and the rest of the places don't need to care about that.
I've got to interrupt here for a second. If you're taking 2 or 3 chat room lines to ask your question, it's probably too complex for this show. So just if your question can't be stated in 30 words or less, go to the Discord, go to the Slack, get your questions answered there, because almost certainly any question that's long, in our experience here, is almost always going to need a follow up, and that means I got to hunt down the follow up and all that. Yeah, just if you're doing part 3, we're probably going to.
I also mentioned you can post a gist, right? So you can go to gist.new in your browser, and then once you post your gist, take the hash from the URL, that's the long string of hexadecimal characters, and pop them in the chat, and then we can look that up and see what your question is. So you can put code in there, you can put other things where your question is, how does this work, or why does this thing, but you can put a bit more there than a question as well.
Especially if you want to illustrate some problem you're having by posting code, the best way to do that is just someone just said, just to go to gist.new, create a gist, and put the hash for the gist in our chat, which it will accept that. It won't accept the whole URL, but it will accept just the hash, and we can find it from there. So that would be that. I think we're done with this one. Let's go on to the next.
Just also say we've got to mention that none of us work for Google. Our opinions are our own. There you go.
Yes, but our opinions are correct. Yeah. I'm not saying Google's aren't. I'm just saying ours are. All right. To the degree we disagree with Google,
it's quite fallacy to say an opinion is correct, right? Because it's just an opinion. Right, go on.
But sometimes they're right. Sometimes they're right. How does Android Studio compare to IntelliJ IDEA for Flutter Dev, considering that the ultimate version is paid?
So I use the ultimate version of IntelliJ IDEA. I do not use Android Studio, and purely because I didn't use any of the Android features. I find it lighter weight. You can also add more customizations. The Ultimate Edition gives you access to all of the utilities, and they integrate very well. So things like the database viewer and everything else that come along with the ultimate version of IDE.
Yeah,
depends on what you're building, right?
I have Android Studio installed, and for the sole purpose of being able to make an emulator so that I can run it from VS Code, which is where I spend most of my time.
I used to install just the dev tools. Install the Android command line tools, and then you can use the command line SDK manager. It pops up, and you can kind of do a bunch of things. It's just, to be honest, space is cheap. Just install Android Studio as well. That's what I do, and then just, if I need to edit Kotlin code or something very Android specific, you've got Android Studio to do that. Otherwise, if you're doing Dart code, IntelliJ IDEA.
And the other thing is that Android Studio will tell you when it's been updated, so that maybe, I don't know if the tools will tell you that they need to be updated, but at least Android Studio kind of nudges you a bit and says, hey, there's new Android Studio out there. Yeah.
Yeah, no, the command line tools don't give you any sort of nudges. You have to go check.
Yeah.
The other thing to say is the IntelliJ IDEA comes with JetBrains Toolbox, which also installs updates and manages you could roll back versions really easily. There's a bunch of stuff that comes around that as well.
Yeah, I've got Toolbox, and I pop it open every once in a while and see if it's doing anything. Actually, I have it set for auto install, so occasionally I'll wake up and it'll say, oh, you're getting some version with a higher letter name of this thing. So it's like, oh, cool. All right, I got something new. It's scary when it does it on its own while you're trying to do a demo, though. That's the bad part. Okay, moving on. Yeah. So some people use VS Code, some people use Android Studio, some people use the other JetBrains products. That's
some
fine.
People use Vim.
Yeah, right. Anything that's got an LSP. Yes. I mean, Emacs. People are doing Emacs with with
I mean,
the
you say
LSP.
anything has an LSP, you could still code without it. It'd just be more difficult.
Yeah, that's true. Here's some plain text files. If you want to find the refer,
Oh,
it's the
you're
definition
bringing
of
back bad
that.
memories. You're bringing back
Too
bad memories.
bad. Search. Just hit the search button.
Every
Yes.
2 seconds trying to compile and realize you got a syntax error. Yeah, great. Thanks.
You want to rename that symbol? Do you want to rename all of those symbols?
I remember getting Refactor in a plugin for
Yeah.
Visual Studio. This was for Visual C++ 4. And there's a plugin that added refactoring because it was all just text based, but it would know the symbols and it would like, you could just rename a variable across your entire app. And it was like, oh my God, this is like the future.
Yeah.
Like AI is now. It's like,
Well, it's still like the biggest difference now for me. I mean, I coded in Perl for decades, and that was my primary way of making computers bounce for me. And the first time I came in to start using, I think, what did we do Dartium in? That was what was the name of that? Not IntelliJ. It was the other big Java-based GUI.
oh, Eclipse.
Eclipse. We had the Eclipse plugin for Dartium, and I went, oh, you can refer to just the definitions of this symbol, not just do a global search. I went, that's cool, because Perl, of course, you can't do that. $X could be anybody's $X. There's no way really to tell. So it was night and day. And now when I go back to Perl occasionally, because I have to for some of my existing clients, it's like, this is so primitive now. I can't just tell where this symbol's being used. This is so weird.
I mean, it's very like same as like Perl and PHP. They're very, because they're dynamic based languages with the way a variable is defined. It blurs the lines a bit. But it's interesting you talk about that because someone was asking me the other day, can you ever have bug-free code, right? And the answer is you can, but it's very simple code, right? Because you can have like very A plus B and have that be like in assembler, have it be very like defined inputs and outputs, and you can fuzz that and you can guarantee that does exactly what it says and it's bug free. But then it's like, well, now you have to do that for the next construct up that joins things together, the next layer, before you know it. Ideally, that's what you try and do when you're building mobile phones, modern Flutter apps, right? You want your unit test testing your functionality, and then you want your integration tests or further larger unit testing the combination of all of these things working together, and that kind of emergent behavior, hopefully gripping the idea that, it's funny because I've literally had apps. I'm like, how is it doing this? How is this bug existing? I did not make it do this. This is impossible for this app to do this. And it's because you've built several bits of code, but when they work together in time and in a time domain, in multiple threads or whatever it might be, suddenly this emergent behavior comes out of this that you just did not expect. And then you have to run test case for to ensure that it just doesn't happen again and you fix the bug or whatever it is. But yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. Anyway,
often it doesn't come up in testing if you don't have really good tests, because the invariants are satisfied individually usually a lot, but when you have cross invariants, that this and this both can't be true at the same time, it starts being
a good example of this is just think about it like a test matrix that covered all possible combinations of every component working together, every variable possible. It's too much. You just can't do it, right? So you just try and cover as much as possible and hope for the best.
That's why you use tools like
test coverage.
That's what it. Go ahead. Sorry.
What did you say, Danielle?
I was just trying to make a joke. I said, isn't that 100% test coverage?
Right. Oh, there was a good daily WTF on 100% the other day. They wrote a test that for every class tested meta properties. And that's all it tested, was just the meta property. So of course the test coverage says, "Whoa, we've sucked in every class and we ran all the basic functions of it." Yeah, right. So
here's the next question. Here's the next question. Who's testing the tests?
Yeah. Well, that's why
the test can be wrong as well.
I haven't used it on a project yet, but that's why I'm attracted. I want to use GLaDOS at some point. We talked about this on the show about a year ago. It's a property tester where you know that your test is going to take two numbers and return a string of a
Is it
certain length.
GLaDOS or GLaDOS from like Portal?
Yeah, we don't know. I don't
No.
know.
Anyway,
I don't think it ever.
all right,
Does it ever say its name in the show? I don't know.
Was a lie.
Okay. Anyway, moving on. Sorry, I'm getting distracted because it's fun. How can we integrate Gemini with a local database and process accordingly? This is
Gemma.
probably beyond the scope. What?
There's a smaller language model called Gemma, and that runs locally on your
Oh.
device, and you can do whatever you want, process on your device. Go.
Oh.
It's a TensorFlow Lite model, I believe. Gemma. It is basically the on-device version of Gemini made by Google.
Yep.
There you go.
Definitely. There you go.
Go look it up.
That was fast. That was fast. Oh God, this is a lot tougher. Okay. Had a nested. Oh, Frey, is this the one that you want us to waiting for a gist? He said something.
Let's read it anyway, and then we can always come back to the gist.
Take scaffold pop scope navigator. I want to only pop the scaffold when the inner nav has no backstack. How to update pop scope can pop with the inner nav pops via nav of context pop. I don't know.
You can put yeah. Hey mate. How to update? Yeah, I mean, the back navigation goes up the tree until the navigator, so it has to be with the pop scope has to be within it. If you want to handle pop scope with just the navigator, it actually has a method on it for that, I believe. There's a top level pop method on navigate widget. We have to go look it up. It's been a while.
Yeah, and here's Frey's follow up on that, which is I'm going to make a gist for that question.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of interesting. The other thing you can go wrong with this kind of situation, just going back to this for example, is that when you're looking at that scaffold with a pop scope with a navigator, say in a build method, you're looking at if you're ever looking at context, say in the pop scope, you're going to be looking at the context of the build method, not of the scaffold, not of the navigator, right? So you can actually wrap one of those widgets in a builder, and by wrapping in a builder, you get a local context, you get scope override on a variable, so context itself becomes the inner context, and that can also help you find like the navigator somewhere within, right?
Yeah.
Oh, actually saying this, you can actually fix this also by doing having a navigator key. You put the key on the navigator, and inside your pop scope function, you can then use a navigator key to get the context and call pop on it. That might be a solution as well.
All right. So when you get a gist, we'll pop it up perhaps as well too. Anyway, next one's easy. Supabase is cool. I like it. I haven't used it in production yet. I've heard of a lot of people who have. I like it partially because I think there are problems that are solved better with RDBMSs rather than document stores. And the great thing about Supabase is because of the idea of storing JSON inside a column that's queried about as easy as querying other columns, means that we can have the best of both worlds. We can have a data structure that's mostly rows and columns and tables and joins and things like that, but then also includes some free flowing key value pairs at the necessary levels for that. So I kind of like both of those. Also, I've been using Postgres in production for over 20 years, so I understand Postgres backwards and forwards. So it's nice that that's at the heart of all this.
Just want to also I'm not going to try to correct you here, Randall, but you said Supabase as a thing. It's Postgres that has JSON columns, right? Like it's not a Supabase specific thing. So you can use Dart code with Postgres and get that same feature of having a document object store and a relational database. That's not Supabase specific, but Supabase implements that technique for really good, and it has a client library and so on. So it makes it a lot easier to implement. However, I have not tried. They've got the new Firebase. They've got the new connector. What's called database connector or something, where it allows you to connect a Postgres database to Firebase in some magical way, and I haven't looked at it yet, but that also might be a solution. But I like Supabase as well.
So
again,
a couple more pluses for Supabase.
Sorry, I just want to say you have to remember though, if you're going to use Supabase, like instead of Firebase or vice versa, you're still locking into the way they do things, right? Like it's that same sort of caveat of, yes, you can all do it yourself, but the whole point of using one of the services is not to do it yourself, but you are going to then lock in your code into doing that. So you want to be very specific about where you use Supabase, right? You may have examples of using Supabase, let's say, in a list view on your front end. That's a bad idea. What you actually want to do is put Supabase on the back end of your app in a Supabase specific structure, then load it into models that your app knows about that is separate from Supabase, that does not use constructs of Supabase. This would be the same if you're doing Firebase, right? You would push all that back outside your app. You don't sprinkle Firebase across your application, because now you're embedding your application only to work with Firebase. And to rewrite that is a huge impact, a huge effort. So what you normally do is you push it out of your mainstream of your application into its own sort of small service or model, as it were, at the back end, and then consume that in the rest of your application. And that way you can replace Supabase with something else when you so choose to, or it no longer becomes relevant for your application to use Supabase. Sorry.
Yeah, I do also want to clarify that Supabase is an umbrella, just like Firebase is an umbrella. There's the Firebase database that's a component of it. There's Firebase Auth, which is a component of it, and so on. Same thing with Supabase. Is there's actually about 10 packages. And the cool thing about that is that those are all open source, and you can even build a Docker image and take it wherever you want it. So unlike Firebase, which clearly does not come in a Docker image, you're locked into their servers. You can actually carry it and take it home with a Supabase. So that's another advantage, that it's all open source. I kind of like that.
There is that aspect to doing that. It can honestly be more complicated to take something like Supabase. Let's say Supabase didn't have a feature you needed. I don't know what that might be, some special indexing technique or something that isn't a feature that they support. So you could fork Supabase, you could add that feature, and then you could run your own image and your Docker image and spin it up on whatever cloud provider you want. Because now you're managing a fork. Now you have to keep that up to date, right? Then maybe you'll try and PR that back and get that put back into Supabase. They may not like to accept that. Now you're always maintaining a fork. So I'm just trying to say that try and think of the consequences of what you're doing to make sure that you're not sort of you're not coding yourself into a corner, because to dig yourself out of that is a lot more difficult than it is just to give yourself the right hooks in the right places to kind of disassemble your application and change something later. It's kind of interesting. I talk about this from an advanced perspective, right, as an experienced developer, but it's interesting as an intermediate developer. You can go too far down that road, right? You can make everything an interface. You can make everything, but you only ever have one implementation of the interface. That's bad, right? So just be careful that it's just something you have to learn, I think, but from experience. But yeah, definitely think about what impact is that you're doing, and just remember as well, Dart has a nice thing that any class, barring the ones with the new prefixes, but any class can effectively become an interface. So you don't actually need to define interfaces for any single class, right? Just put that out there.
One other cool thing about Supabase is that they have an ongoing technical blog that answers a lot of really cool questions. So I try to keep that in my RSS feeds to keep up to date on things, because they'll tell me things just about generic Flutter that I hadn't understood before. So it's kind of cool. Anyway, Supabase, check them out, and they're free, except for their hosting, which isn't that expensive and has a free tier. Anyway, do you know any Figma plugin you use to parse Flutter theme data from Figma layer or project? It sounds like you're trying to spit out theme data from Figma directly. Don't they have a plugin that does that?
There's some plugins that actually generate styles and things. But yeah, I don't think there's anything that just dumps out theme data, because it's very specific. Like Figma has its own set of styling and layers and stuff that don't match or can't be put into theme data, right? So yeah, it would make sense then to have a custom Figma theme extension that does things that are very specific to in the way that Figma requires it. Maybe let's say we've got like three mediums. Was it large, medium, small for title? Is it body and caption? I think it is. I can't remember now. In the theme data, well, that's great, but that's only 3 sizes per sort of main heading style, as it were. Well, in Figma, you can add as many as you like, and that just doesn't fit. So you're not going to probably see a plugin that does this one-to-one. But you could definitely build one that would do Steam extensions to do it. Again, what's the point? I mean, at some point, like, do it manually once, and then just keep it up to date. Each time a designer changes something, change it.
Yeah.
A question like that about some plugin that was doing a Figma JSON export something.
Yeah, there's a few plugins and things around that do different things, but I'm just
My previous designers used a plugin called Supernova that pulled styles out, and I they loved having that. I didn't really, because I usually like, that makes everything basically a style then, that you need, and I much prefer to know that I want this to be the same style as that, but bold. In the ways that we can build like tech, our text spans and stuff to inherit styles and stuff like that. You lose all of that if you're specifying an entire style every single time. So I mean, there may be a use for it, but I'm just saying in practice, I didn't love the feel of how that worked.
I found things like Figma is a similar example to, say, doing Flutterflow, where Flutterflow, every individual color of every button can be tweaked. So they're forced, in some senses, to spit out an entire specification for every aspect of that button for every button, because everything is tweakable. I see this a lot in these, low tooling, low coding solutions that you end up, because everything is customizable, you end up with essentially assembly code instead of high level language in the output. And I see this over and over again. So anyway, it's kind of my comment on that. And
It's kind of interesting you're talking about how it starts looking like assembler or compiler or something like that when we get to the next question, in my opinion.
He was coding in Perl, come on.
it's a story of a lovely lady with 4 boxes somewhere on the screen.
I know. I was like, wait a minute, what happened there? All right, next question. I guess I think we've done this to death.
People who are listening to this only on the audio are not going to get that last 30 seconds, but that's perfect. Fine. How many people do we actually have that are audio only, though? Probably not a lot. But we'll respect y'all. We remove boxes around on the screen. Okay, it's using code generation in Flutter, like, for example, using verb.pod freeze and retrofit through build runner, a good practice. Sometimes it feels like it's no longer Flutter. I can understand that. I can relate to that. But unless you want to type exactly the same code over and over again, it's kind of nice that we have build runner around, and it's kind of nice that eventually we'll have macros to handle some of that, maybe.
You can still. Is this that feeling that it's no longer composition because you're now bringing everything together up front? I mean, even when you compose classes together, if they're constant, they end up being like instantiated once and shipped inside your app. I'm not practically. I see what you're saying. It doesn't feel maybe the same, but it's definitely worth it. And there are changes coming to the way Dart does code generation. For example, macros coming out, and generally like how build runner and those kind of things are utilized, and it's going to make the whole process a lot smoother. So it's best to utilize it now, and then these things can be migrated later. And you'll appreciate it. It's not until you get your project starts growing really large that you start appreciating code generation a lot. I think a good example of that is localization. When you add like localization for 60 languages, you're glad that you have code generation.
Yeah, true.
For Riverpod code generation, I actually prefer it, even if it's just something simple, because the code that you end up doing when you're doing a async auto dispose family, and with the right type parameters in the right order, starts to get a little awkward. And yes, you can code that all by hand. Remy says it still works the same way, but I prefer using the generator for that just because it gets it right, and I don't have to memorize the names of the multiply noun stacked classes to figure out what's going on.
I take two. Sorry, just on this point. I mean, I think every Flutter project I've made has code generation because I at least use JSON serializable or some subset of that kind of thing, like freezed, to generate the Dart models, so you don't have to generate or keep up to date your equals and hash code functions and whatever other sort of things around that you want to add. But it did occur to me that recently that I was using a record and it had multiple fields, and I was like, this is just a data class because they have equality matching, so you can actually see if two records are equal. And I was in the order of the fields doesn't matter. And I was just like, actually, we now got data classes because records can be typed. So you can do a type alias for a record and then use that type alias everywhere. It's not the same as a class, I guarantee you, and you would have to put extensions on to get to do the things you wanted to do. But I was thinking, I don't have to use code generation anymore. Like with that, if you're to use records, it's an interesting way of doing it. I'm not saying it's a nice way of doing it, but yeah, with macros, I think, we're going to get to that point.
It handles about a third of the cases that I would have used data records for. I still find myself, though, wanting an actual type that's distinct from all other types when I'm talking about a shape, because records type is the shape, not the name that you assign with a type def. And because of that, if you have two things that have exactly the same shape, they are interchangeable. There's no way to tell them.
This is one of the reasons why I said it's not exactly. You can add extensions, but the extensions apply to the same shape. They don't apply to the same class name, should we say.
Definitely limitations. I want to interrupt for a second. We're hitting the top of the hour. I have 17 questions in the queue. I'm going to take questions for 5 more minutes. That's it. So at the top of the hour, the exact top of the hour, we're cutting it off because otherwise we'll never get to live coding today. So
I will add to code generation when you are doing some plugin work and you need to write method channels. Just use something like Pigeon, and it's much easier and nicer to quickly update and have in sync your code.
This is I agree. This is also part of this will probably be my last question because I do have to turn into a pumpkin around the top of the hour. But the thing I would kind of point out with this is part of using code generation is so that you're looking at a smaller piece of code that matters. That the rest of it gets kind of built around it. And a lot of times, I think that code can still look like Flutter and can still be somewhat reasonable for that. And so I'm not sure I buy into it's doesn't really feel like it's Flutter for that part, because once again, we don't care about the generated codes files in general. We care about the Flutter part of it. But the second thing I wanted to add is, I mentioned earlier in this show about the huge changes that have happened, like with how we manage lists and stuff, and what you can do inside of that. And I'm sure when we first started that to a lot of people that didn't feel like Flutter. And as it's come along and we've seen it work and we've done stuff, I think what feels like Flutter is a little bit of a moving target. And so I think that and the I'll say the marketplace is a great determiner in a lot of ways of what's a good practice or not, because if it catches on, it's probably good practice. That's not perfect, but it's that's
I was going to also mention just a point on the whole generator things. Someone just mentioned why the generator files not hidden. Then you can hide them. In fact, you can join them up into one file in your IDE, and I can even show you the setting for that in a minute if you remind me.
I do.
But
I do that too. So I have the VS Code version of that. So once you do yours,
it groups them together and essentially hidden. The other thing I will mention is that please just remember this. Commit your generated files. I think that's the correct way of doing it. I'll tell you why. Because when you check out code, you expect that code to compile exactly as it did before. If you're using code generation, it can generate different code, and therefore you cannot find the bugs that are now in that release version, right? So it's always good to commit the generated code And if you're talking about formatting or anything else, you can exclude them from your formatting. That's the way to achieve, like, I think, parity in terms of being able to have that feature of being able to check out previous version, compile it, and know that you're compiling the exact same code.
Remy also
Yeah,
said there's an advantage to that, which is that when you generate code and check that in, then your CI/CD is a lot faster because it doesn't have to actually generate the files in your CI/CD pipelines.
there are people that will disagree.
Go on.
I was going to say there are people that will disagree with that statement. I do agree with what Simon and Randall and Remy are all saying, and I guess I do feel the people that disagree, if they want to be wrong, they can be wrong. But
it's an opinion, right? It's just my opinion.
But we're right.
Honestly,
we're right.
I will. Yeah. See, so the other reason, it's the exact same reason why you like with checking your log file, your PubSpec log file, because you have bracketed versions that are in your, so you have like the correct inside your versions. Let's say any minor revision is fine, but then of course you, again, when you check out the code, you want to make sure you're using the exact version that you actually compiled it with, which is in your log file. It's also the same reason why you don't publish a PubSpec log file with a library, because otherwise you're locking it into the library, which locks it into the application. The idea is the library is open for change. So there's different reasons why you want to do things for different ways of doing different products at the end of the day, but for an application, for the end result, you definitely want to commit those files.
Yep. All right. So enough on that one. Let's go on to the next one, which has a very short answer. Bye, Danielle.
Thanks for coming. Bye for now.
Bye, Danielle. The answer to this one is no.
Well,
operator gate, a state management
solution. It has integrated state management solutions that you can use instead of Riverpod if you want to. There you go. It's not going to be the same as Riverpod because that's why you have Riverpod. So in fact, you can build plenty of good applications just using all the built-in stuff. There's no reason. It's just.
I'm a big fan now of value listenable builder and value notifier. Just because you could just plop those right away, make a global with the value notifier in it, and you consume it with value listable builder, and handles the subscribe and the dispose for you. So it's just a quick way of saying this variable is tied to this code we want to rebuild, and it's quick and dirty, but it works, and there's not a lot of thinking to make it work. So remember that value notifier, value listenable builder. It updates on, is it equality or identity? I think it updates on equality. So that means you can actually have something that has workable equals, and it will notify only when that changes. So that's great. Good stuff. So so that's kind of built in. That's not just kind of built in. That's built in. All right, move on. No.
No. I was also going to mention that not to forget that inherited widget exists, and then it is more complicated. And then there's a bunch of state. I'm just trying to find the thing, and I can't find it. It's really bugging.
Inherited model.
Yeah, you got inherited widget. They added some new ones, and I can't find them now. I say new; they're still they're new in the realm of Flutter, but relatively new. Inherited model is one of them, which is really nice because again, that kind of covers. I actually covered this in my 2023 FlutterCon talk, I think it was, which is you can have aspects and you can register just for an aspect change, which means just one field has changed from maybe a larger model, and you can register for that. And that's how the framework does things like media query size of, media query view padding of, right? They are aspects of media query. But there is actually I'm trying to find it now. It's going to bug the hell out of me if I can't find it. There's some like app state stuff. Have they got rid of it now? They had like a whole sort of top level state thing.
It'd probably be based on inherited widgets. So I bet if you look for reference,
that's what I'm looking at, and I can't find it.
Okay, all right. Hey, great minds think
alike.
What's our excuse?
Yeah, exactly. It's really gonna bug me that I can't find it now.
Okay, you'll probably find it.
Go on, carry on. I'm sure it'll
Okay.
come back to me later.
Go to the next question.
Yeah, next,
So
please.
again, we're at the top of the hour. No more questions this time. Come back in 167 hours to get your questions in. And yes, we're not crossing DST quite yet, so it's still 168 hours until the next show. From beginning to beginning. This one, so many ways to not answer this correctly. But is there any proper way to run a background service on iOS? First, why do you want to run a background service? That's the first question. Why do you want to burn my battery? That's the angrier question of this one.
I mean, there are libraries, and you
Yeah.
can look them up.
Yeah.
So yes. I mean, the thing is, what you're asking for is not really anything to do with. To be clear, it's nothing to do with Flutter, right? So Flutter enables you to communicate with the platform, and then it's up to you to write some platform code. If the platform supports running stuff in the background, you can run stuff in the background, and then Flutter will just run along with that. You start obviously having to understand a bit more about the embedder and how you would communicate with Flutter whilst it's in the background. Sadly, that's just the realm of where you're coding, right? That's what you're trying to move into. So
I think the point is that iOS, Apple makes it harder to do in the background what is sort of semi-trivial on Android side, because Apple's is being more of a nanny state, tapping down people,
So
burning up your batteries.
if you're trying to use a sleep timer, I want to use a sleep timer. You mean you want to make a sleep timer, or you're trying to use the sleep timer built into the device to wake your app up after a certain period of time? Because you can just do that. You don't have to have a background service. You're not running your app all the time, right? That's the whole point, right? The whole point is that your app can go to sleep, and then it'll be woken up and notified when a certain event occurs at a particular interval, right? An example of that is Android Alarm Manager, which is actually a package. Android.
Yeah,
it's one of the plus packages, which I'll pop in the chat here for anyone that's interested, and that allows you to do exactly that kind of thing on Android, particularly. But yeah, there's you can find some packages. I can't think of anyone specific because I haven't had to do that. So,
yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, we already did that one. Okay. Moving on. This is a two-parter from Loic. Any good recommendation of an implementation of gRPC? I'm considering ServerPod, but never used it. And I need to stream frames to a server to perform AI computation on each frame like a camera stream and stream back a modified frame to the client in real time. Considering gRPC, any easier alternative? Wow.
WebSocket.
Yeah, WebSockets are pretty straightforward, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you just stuff bytes in one end and bytes pop out the other end, right?
Yeah, and just do it in both directions. And in fact, you can define the protocol of what you're sending, and you can just stuff them in a certain way with your JPEG data. I mean, you could use multi-part MIME even, right, and deliver form data along with your image. So you've got parameters that have been sent or metadata that have been sent with images, or even JSON, right? You can chuck a whole JSON along with an image up in one go up a WebSocket.
And as I recall, a WebSocket has start and end markers and stuff, so you actually have a chunk of data that you can identify.
That's done in the sub protocol. That's kind of done for you in essence. Yeah. So the high level, you just send some data and it will do what it needs to do.
Cool. Yeah, sounds like there is a
I'm
way.
not sure if WebSocket for camera will be fast enough. I would probably take a look at WebRTC.
Yeah, WebRTC. It depends on the frame rate, right? I mean, to be honest, the problem here is not the problem with video and audio is that you need to be able to drop data. I know it sounds stupid, but that's really the problem you're going to get. So, for example, if you send frames of video up a WebSocket, what you're doing is you're making well, you can use it in a bidirectional way. just send stuff out, send stuff back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do that. Yeah.
So what you could do, Lorik, is you would send something up with a metadata of, let's say, a generated ID, it's like a UUID, and then the return response that you get has the matching UID, so you know which received packet, which received data matches the send request, basically, because it's asynchronous, right? But anyway, yeah, the problem you've got is if you're going to just start sending frames up a WebSocket, you're creating a queue of processing that has to take place, right? Whereas a real-time stream of data, like as Raf was just saying with WebRTC, allows you to drop data, you drop frames. So when you're processing one, you're not processing another one and getting like you're sort of getting blocked up and backed up on processing.
Yeah, you know, that actually means that probably this video in both directions should probably be WebRTC to automatically deal with drop frames and resends and stuff like that. So that would make more sense to send a WebRTC stream to the server, have it do the processing, and then have that send a WebRTC stream back.
There's ways of dealing with that with WebSockets, to be honest. I mean, like you can do things like whilst I'm processing, if you receive any other frames, to drop them. They get sent, but just forget about them. Don't process another frame until the previous one's been processed. There you go.
Yeah.
And don't expect that to be like real time. You will always have latency, at least few seconds.
Yep. And
there's a great set of libraries for WebRTC. They're in Dart and on Pub. They were sponsored by Stream. They do the Stream video chat, and they're very good.
Yep, exactly.
Yep.
Need drop frames. Yeah, WebRTC I think handles that pretty elegantly, and it has to, because think of what it's trying to do. It's trying to do real-time video chats, and the only way to do that is to be able to manage the fact that you don't have 100% connectivity necessarily. So yeah, definitely. All right, moving on. Let's keep moving. Oh, Loic's got another one here in the queue. Look at that. Any recommendation for a cloud provider with access to GPU and pay-as-you-go service? Well, Google does that, right?
Like I said, they all do that.
Yeah, actually, yeah, it's starting to be the big competitor thing. It's probably like everybody's
the cheapest one.
I think DigitalOcean probably has this already too. They tend to eventually
I don't know of any cloud provider that doesn't have GPU processing. I think the problem here you need to make sure is that you're utilizing the GPU, not just running your code on CPU, right? And B, that you're also ensuring that you're managing those services correctly, i.e. spinning them up, using them, shutting them down, so you're only paying for the time allotment that you're using. Things like that can affect you. But yeah, you say the cheapest one, then go price them up and find the cheapest one and use it. The thing is, you remember, if you've got your backend hosted in Google Cloud, for example, then you want Google Cloud GPU to be utilized. If you do go buy some GPU service from an external provider, you've now got latency between this provider and that provider and how they process the data. So you might find that yes, you're going to get cheaper, but actually it costs you more because it takes longer to process. So just be aware there's other caveats to the way you do stuff.
Yeah. Be sure to come back and tell us what you've got working. We'll be happy to beta test. We'll be your beta test load if you want. Definitely. Sounds like fun. All right.
I will also mention, Lorik, that you can also do some pre-processing on your device to maybe also cut down on what you're sending or what you're trying to process on the server side. It depends on what you're trying to do, but keep that in mind that you can, if you push everything to the server side, what you're now doing is you're creating yourself one big bottleneck for all of, let's say you've got 100 users all trying to do it at the same time. You've now got to service 100 users with your backend and scale it. Whereas if you can spread the load out across each of their devices, now you're pushing stuff to the client side for processing. It means that you're effectively not paying for everyone's processing, and you can make your backend cheaper. So there's a pros and cons to doing both, but see what you can do in terms of pre-processing before you send it. So you're only sending what actually needs to be processed on the server side.
Yeah, for the people that buy a brand new phone every year, most people's phones already have some sort of GPU in them that's actually pretty sophisticated these days.
They all have all the new phones have like APUs that they've got now or whatever, right? And they can run TensorFlow Lite models, and TensorFlow Lite models now run always back go back to CPUs as well, back to certain versions of Android and iOS and things. So you can probably do quite a bit of processing on the client side.
Yep. All right, moving on. Here we go, because we still got plenty of questions and we don't have a lot of time left. Cloud provider, this one. There we go. Are there any specific libraries or tools recommended for Flutter developers who want to incorporate AI into their apps? Well, yeah, we've been talking about this the whole show, right? Gemini. There's Gemini libraries so that you can use that with Gemma to use it on device. There's and actually all of the major places have some sort of Dart and Flutter. Actually, maybe not. I think the nice thing about Gemini is that because it's a homegrown Google product, they made sure that really early on Dart and Flutter were supported out of the chute. So that's great. I don't know that there's I think there are. LangChain definitely works with Dart and Flutter, and LangChain supports everything out there. So you could always fall back to the least common denominator with LangChain to make that work, as I understand it. And I'm not doing a ton with AI yet, but there we go. Yes.
Just for those that don't know, Kaggle is owned by Google. It's their little thing for AI, hosting AI models. So
cool.
It's not a separate service. It's actually Google.
Right. All right. Let's see. We did that one. How about this one? What would be an interesting challenge to test your knowledge in Flutter? I've got a couple of clients if you want to answer my code for them. No, just kidding.
I mean, the train of thought, if you're trying to you want to understand if you know those areas, I mean, the best thing I can suggest is that you go through one of the roadmaps, for example, and then follow it. And if there's bits that you haven't learned, and then that gives you something to learn, right? In roadmap.sh/Flutter, for example, there's tons of Flutter roadmaps out there. I'm trying to think of a specific thing, but to be honest, it's well, have you made plugins? No, then you should make some plugins. Have you done this? No, then do that, right? You just pick a list, and if you haven't done it yet, do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Mark, why are you not here? Why are you not on the show? Come on.
Or if you just want to challenge your breadth of knowledge about Flutter, join the Discord and read the questions in the general chat, which come by once every 30 seconds. And see if you know the answer to that. If you don't, learn the answer to that. That's how my skills have been mostly improved over the last 6 years, is I've been answering questions for everyone. And it really has helped out, because sometimes I see something and I go, oh, wow, I wonder how that works. And then I go off and research it. So it's a great source of questions. It's a great source of relevant questions, because it's people who are now facing problems trying to use Flutter. And if you're that expert, you can be that expert for them in other places too, including getting hired by big companies and so on. So that's kind of nice. All right, enough of that. Let's move on. How easy is it to improve the UI of an existing Flutter app without impacting the overall architecture or functionality? Depends on how it's written, right?
I mean,
if it's good, you just can improve UI, right? Because it's separate.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, this is about has it been? If you could, you better just do it. I mean, if you can't, then it's not been architected correctly.
Yeah, exactly.
Now start refactoring, re-architecting your code, right?
Right. If you have a DO call adjacent to a widget generation return, probably not going to work well. It's got to be architected properly. Yes. All right. Well, I don't know where we're going to contribute much more to that. Let's move on to the next one, which actually could be a coding example Best way of making a card perfectly circular. Well, you're not going to use a card, right? You're going to use...
Just use material.
Yeah.
A material with a shape. There you go. Done. Circle border. Done.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go look at what Alex, the point you're trying to make here, and this is what most people do, is they go look at the widgets, their material design widgets, they decide a certain parameters to do a certain thing, and you're trying to augment them to do what you want to do. What you actually want to do is go look at the card, control click, command click, whatever it is, go click on card, it'll take you into the source code of the widget. You can go look at its build method and go, oh, it's just a piece of material, and it sets the parameters on it. Oh, maybe I can just call material with my own set parameters. Or even lower than that, oh, it's a physical shape. I'll just use the physical shape. I think it's physical shape, the underlying thing from material. But you can follow the tree down, right? And you can work out what's going on. Saying that, I should take the banner off, shouldn't I? There we go.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is that we have source for everything you see. So go look at the source code to card, and you'll notice that at some point it's doing a rectangle, and just go, oh, I don't want a rectangle, I want a circle. And you could just copy paste all that source over and just change it to a circle or whatever, right? More or less. Somebody's got columns and stuff, but
I'm actually going to go look at card and see if it actually supports a border parameter. I don't think it does, but I can't remember. It does. It supports a shape. It supports a shape border. What? Just pass the shape parameter, Alex, with circle border, and you're done.
I would add a stadium border. I think stadium border is underused.
Oh yeah. He said perfectly circular. So if you want perfectly circular, then it's a circle border. Oh, another thing to say is the border will be circular. It doesn't mean the shape of the widget will be that. You have to wrap it in an aspect ratio of 1 to guarantee that it's. And then if you want it to be centered within its parent, that's exactly so. Can you wrap in a center? So it'd be center aspect ratio card. Just saying.
Yeah.
But this is how you compose things together. Then you make a widget called circle card, and you can use that wherever you want in your app, right?
Yep. All right. Moving on. How can I build? Let's see. How do I build a sleep tracking app, and what package should I add? It would be the ZZZZZ package.
No. So what you're actually asking, first of all, is how do you do sleep tracking, right? And you say what package? Well, that's the app. So there's no magical package that you use to do sleep tracking. So you need to break it down. How do you do sleep tracking? Well, you need to go research that. I'm guessing it's something to do with the sensors and the microphone and the sound and things like this. So now you need to run stuff in the background so that you can, while your app is not in front of the user, you're recording or you're making use of the sensors. Now you need to go look at how you do that on each operating system, on iOS, on Android. And then once you worked out how you do that, then you go look and see, is there any packages that anyone else has done to make my life easier that might have done similar things for me? And maybe you can fork them, maybe you can work with them, right? Instead of having to do it all yourself. But in essence, it's because that's the entire application. You're going to find no magical package that solves it exactly as you need it for your product. So that's when you start doing it yourself. You write the native code into your app for doing the various tasks that you're trying to do with the native platform. And then you feed the data back into your Flutter application. You can present that to the user. There you go. Just like that. Magic.
Okay. All right. We're getting close to the end. We only have a few more questions. And look at this. Let's see. If an alert pop up, in which context is taking? When I pop back my provider class, missed the context. Got to add some English to this.
So there's a common thing. I think I know what's going on here. So there's two things going on. So first of all, you're trying to open up an alert, a pop-up alert to the user, I'm assuming, and you're doing that either from the provider or from the return from the provider, right? So let me give an example. You open up a screen, it has a button, you push that button, it then goes off to some background thing, like through a provider, does some stuff asynchronously, and at the end, you want it to display a pop-up to the user to say, I'm finished, right? Now, if you press the button and then you pass the context from that button press to your backend function, then they leave the screen and they go off and do something else in your application, or something else happens within your app. That context that was linked to the button, well, the button's no longer there. So that context is gone. It's been disassociated. Well, it's disassociated from the UI, right? It means that when you try and pop something up, it goes, where's the overlay for me to add the pop-up to? I'm not connected, crash, right? So you don't pass the context to your backend for exactly that reason. It's contextual. It's contextual information for the point in time that is being used. That's why you don't store build context anywhere. You're trying to avoid doing that. You use the context from the existing build that's taking place. So with that in mind, what you do is you send an event back. So you have like a stream or a listener of some sort. You can do this with provider. We were doing this the other day, me and Randall. You can change your state and then have your UI what's the listing thing for state? I forget. Notify, I can't remember. Anyway, whatever it is in like Riverpod, right? But anyway, the point being that you ref watch, you can use that. Then when your widget builds, you can say, oh, did this event occur? Yes. Then display the pop-up. So your front end is updating based on the state of the back end is now in, right? That's the key concept here, right? So you're thinking in an imperative style, right? Where you direct things to occur rather than update your state and then the UI reacts to that, right? And represents that state. It's one of those things that, you know, if your state and your UI don't match each other, then your app is completely balked, right? Because in so many ways, the user's not seeing what actually is going on under the hood, and under the hood thinks something completely different that the user's seeing, right? The two things have to be matched, right? And that's why the way that Flutter approaches it with you change your state and then you have your UI build to that state, that makes the most contextual sense, right? In terms of building UI, right? It's not just Flutter. That reactive approach has been quite common for some time in quite a few platforms. But yeah, so anyway, I shall. Yeah. Hopefully that answered your question or something.
It answers something, I'm sure.
It answers something, right?
Something, at least, yes.
I'm assuming you say provider class because you're talking about Riverpod, because that's where providers are also being used, but also the provider package uses providers. What was there's that widget that you can have like a callback in that, so that when state changes it's not ref.watch. There's
ref.listen.
Is that you get ref.listen. Sorry, so you run ref.listen. Yeah. That's the one.
Yeah.
So you run that in your build, right?
Right. Yeah. Right. And then you call actions based on that. Yes. Ref listen doesn't rebuild the widget that it's in, but it has a hook that will run when other things emit events, which is what you want to do here, to be able to trigger a callback when there's certain.
And then inside that, so you can have a stream provider which receives events. Your provider that you're talking about right now, once it finishes, it emits an event to that stream provider. Then you're listening to that stream provider on your front end. And when you get the data coming through on the stream provider, you can then say, oh, this is a alert user processes finished event. I'm now going to display that dialogue to the user. And you can just, inside that build method, literally, because you're inside the build context, you could just say context.navigator of show dialogue, whatever, right?
Right. So cool. All right. Just a few more here. This one's going to be just an opinion thing. What about server as a back end? It works. Server prod.
So I assume this is server pod as a back end. I really like the authors of server pod, and I like what they're doing. I have not yet used it, so I'm going to reserve my comments until I actually use it on a project, which I do definitely want to do. I just haven't had the opportunity and chance at the moment. But yeah, it's really nice to have a framework that actually has it's just dedicated for this. Like the other frameworks are great, but they're coming out of bolt-ons from other things, right? Like Shelf is from the Dart team having to require to have a way of processing requests for whatever they're doing. So you get
Right.
Shelf, right? Boom. Then you get Dart Frog, which is coming from VGV. They needed it for whatever they're doing, so they've made it, but it's not a product that company is just dedicated to making. That's where Cyberpod comes in, right? They've got finance. They've got, you know, they've got product that is just their single product, so it's going to be good. They put all their effort into doing that. However, again, not used it, so we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, what's cool about Cyberpod is that you define your like communication protocol in YAML, and then it generates this bridge for you, so you don't have to like do it manually.
Whatever
And I think
happened to
they are
IDL?
doing the. I'm sorry.
Sorry, it just reminded me of IDL, interface descriptive language. It allows you to define these things.
Yeah,
it's before YAML.
Yeah, true. And I think they also have like integration with Jasper, so that's a bonus, I guess.
That's a new recent thing actually as well.
The Jasper
try that.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, and I'm same place Simon is, which is that it looks great. I haven't had a chance to use it on a real client's project yet, so I don't have direct experience. I only have a blog post experience, which is not the same level, not even close. Yes, right. You know, but sometimes that's the only way I know things is blog posts. So that's kind of handy. That in this show. Let's move on. We got a couple more questions and then some live coding. So let's show this. Can you talk about dependency inversion at runtime? What do you want us to say about that? Dependency inversion at runtime. There, I talked about it. What do you want? What's the question? What's your question?
Yeah.
Dependency inversion. Is that a different word for dependency injection? I'm not familiar with the difference between the two.
Well, you can do this thing where you pass it in. So from my understanding about this, at least, it's where you use second order functions. So you can pass in a callback that returns dependency. And therefore, what you're actually doing is it's at runtime when that class needs to access that data, it calls the function that returns it. So think like factory methods almost, right? So you can pass in, say, let's say you've got two components that depend on each other. You don't obviously want to design your system like that, but maybe you've designed yourself into a whole and you need this, right? Well, to do dependency injection, well, that one needs that one in its constructor, and that one needs that one in its constructor. Well, that's not possible, right? Like it's a catch-22. So what you do is you pass in a function that returns the instance of this that's in the external state, and it means that at runtime it can fetch the instance from the other one, for example. But yeah, you could do it where required. Yeah, you're basically passing in like a lambda that returns a value, and at runtime it can return that value. And it's this basically depends injection at runtime. So it's like dynamic independent dependency injection. Sure. Does that help, Paul?
I hope so, because the question was sort of like a non-question. So it's just like
we'll talk about it. We talked about it.
Add some random subjects or add some random links in my mental cognitive state between this and something else, some other fact that's also useful. All right. This one I like. It's an interesting question, and I can see how it comes up. Does an unmodifiable list view is it equivalent to what fast immutable collections does? No. And the reason for that is that unmodifiable list view means that the top level is unmodifiable, but it can hold objects that can be mutated. So that's different from what FIC does, where it actually has an entire data structure that is built up essentially of unmodifiable list views, although they do it by using classes that implement the interface of list rather than being an unmodifiable list in particular. They implement list, but implement only a portion of it. So that's how it differs. Raphael, I'm right on that, right? So the unmodifiable list view is just the top level, right?
Probably. I've
You don't
never
know.
used FIC.
Okay,
But it looks cool.
Yeah, as I know it, unmodifiable list view is just that top layer. It's sort of next level down from saying something is final. People get really confused when you say final X equals list of something, that I can now still add items to the list. They think, well, isn't final? I mean, you can't. Yeah, you can't change the actual X again. And unmodifiable list view means you can't change the individual elements of that list, but each of those in turn, being an object, could have mutation methods that can be used. Whereas with FIC, fast immutable collections, you are building a hierarchy that at every level it is immutable. So it's much more detailed. So that's, as I understand it, the difference between the two. And Simon's going to come back and correct me now. Oh, you're not talking. I can't hear you. Ah, yes, right.
No, I was going to say, no, you're completely right. But on top of that, just remember that if you are using like immutable object trees, if you make one change, you're making a copy of everything, right? So
Yeah.
deep hierarchies with immutable object trees, probably not a good idea if you're having to mutate them all the time. They probably should be mutable at that point. So just think what you're doing, right?
Yep. And okay, that's enough on that. We beat that one to death already. And the last one for today is the continuation of this nested nav thing. We do have
leads us into some live coding, doesn't it?
Yeah. So this and then live coding. So you want this to be part of the live coding essentially, because you're going to go look at this.
Sure, let's do it.
Right. Yeah, we got a gist. We have an actual live gist. This is as opposed to someone else who in the channel was trying free entertaining was trying to paste the entire URL for the gist. No. Do not paste the entire URL. We do not see those. We can see a string that apparently is random hash characters, but we cannot see the actual URL of your gist.
I'm waiting for when AI starts filtering out comments, going, "This is a gist. You can't use this because it's actually a link or some other like random."
Right. That's how Skynet started. I know there's
our AI overlords say no, right?
Yes, right.
Or say please.
Is gist. Yes. All right.
Nice Gemini.
So we are done with questions. We are still done with. We've been done with questions for 37 minutes, but people
we will
keep
accept questions about the live coding though. So if there's anything about what we're going to be showing, obviously ask you about that.
We have two items that we're doing. We're doing this, and we're also doing. Just to remind everybody, we're doing a HTTP server with HTTP2 with upload download as part of what Simon has to do for a client anyway. So yay.
We'll try to. Anyway, let's go to phrase code here. Let me get that up and going.
Cool. Okay, yeah. So I will leave you at the gists.
Okay.
Thanks very much for joining us, Ralph.
No worries.
Come back anytime.
See you next
week. Soon. Come back soon. Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Let's see if we can get this working. Share screen. That's what I want to do. That should be coming through.
In case people aren't reading it, this is in fact a Flutter Stanley Cup. So just to let people know that I'm trendy with the Stanley Cup, and also it's Flutter, and it's got water.
Mine's gone walkies. It's around here somewhere. Anyway.
Yep.
So this is a phrase code. I haven't even opened it up yet. So let's take a look at it together. So updating pop scope on the inner scope. Let's have a look. So pushing a nested nav. Interact with the builder. Yeah, there's actually a slightly better way of doing this, by the way. I'll show you in a second.
Cool.
But yeah, open top level. Navigate a key. Okay, so on generate route. Oh yeah, because that's inside the nested one. Yep. So the idea being that you've got it's kind of interesting, right? Because the pop script here is the pop of the outer one, right? In effect, that's what we're saying. So we're saying we can pop on the out. What you're trying to do is say you can only pop on the outer one once all the inner navigator steps are done. Is that right? So let's say we've got a stack of like 5 routes on the inside navigator. You want all 5 to be popped and then the outside one to be popped. I mean, what you can effectively do there is that should actually happen by default because it bubbles up. So effectively, you should be able to put a did pop route on navigator itself, and when it's the last route, just call pop, and it will pop the outside navigator. Am I understanding your question correctly here? We can run the code as well. I don't mind. Exactly. Yeah. So you shouldn't need to do all this craziness. Actually, saying that we can try it if you want. Let's grab the code and see if we can make it work. Right.
See, now you wouldn't make recognition in a company if you removed a lot of lines of code.
It's all about the output, right? It's all about the number of lines. Don't you know we code the bugs in so we can keep our jobs? Didn't anyone tell you that?
Yeah, right. There are many examples in the daily WTF of what apparently people are getting paid by the line of code to do.
I was like, if someone's paid by like you can be thinking a long time around some code and making it kind of like
longer
work. And then the output is quite small, but it's good code, right?
Right.
And it doesn't frustrate me when it's like, treat differently. Anyway, whatever. I'm just
okay.
making small talk here. Right. Shall we try and run it?
This is interesting. Specifically with Android back button, not a programmable pop.
It should be fine. Yeah. Should be
Same thing. Okay.
Yeah. I appreciate that though, because it does make things slightly different. Oh no, what have I done?
Ugh. Error.
I've been changing some stuff around and I know what this is. I thought I solved this. Give me 1 second.
Reboot.
I have to dance like a monkey for a second.
Reboot Skynet. Reboot Skynet. I can dance with Dash.
I'm sure the audience have questions.
I'm watching for questions. I'm not seeing any. They might question my sanity soon. That's fine. I can already prove that I have nothing to prove.
You are insane, so you don't need the sanity anymore.
I mean, I sing that song, and you may be right. I guess that only proves that I'm insane. Because I rode my motorcycle in the rain. In Oregon, if you don't ride in the rain, you don't ride 3/4 of the year. So I had a rain suit for my little motorcycle. I was not compensated for anything because I had a 250 bike, which is small, very small bike, but it got me everywhere I needed to get in my first couple of years of driving. So that was kind of fun. The great thing is I took it out on the snow. This is how insane I was when I was 16. I took it out on the snow because I could use my feet as outriggers. So I was zipping along on my little 250 bike on the snow everywhere. Cars were in the ditches and stuff, but I was just zipping along. If I'd fall down, I'd slide a little bit, then I'd get back up and put my feet back out as outriggers and keep going. It's like insane. They were not fancy tires. They were just normal street tires. But because my feet were out there as outriggers, it worked fine. Don't try this at home. Now I'm going to get, if there's anybody here from snow territory, like up there in the great north of Europe, you can probably tell me if I'm being crazy with that, or maybe that you've actually done that yourself. That would be funny.
You crazy? Heaven forbid.
Yeah, no, I mean other people might have had a small motorcycle with using their feet as outriggers. I'm just wondering.
I'm a bit.
I'll make a Facebook post. Yeah, I'll make I know you're probably busy. I'll make a Facebook posting about this later and see if anybody does that. Oh, here, Frey's got some more stuff. Let's see. I think Will Pop Scope was actually easier. You get a callback. Pop Scope, you need to keep it updated. Is that true?
Platform.
Is that true? This is what I'm putting up on the
Sorry,
screen.
hang on, I'm just trying to like.
Okay.
And yeah, give me a second. Why is it that whenever you want something to just work, it doesn't want to just work? I mean, I can share this, I guess. So let me present this because I think people actually find this kind of stuff interesting. So
Okay. Cool. Yeah.
why not?
I'll get rid of this.
Yeah, we'll try and do my best here to explain. So I'm trying to rush because I don't want us sitting here with errors and trying to get through things right. But basically, I'm using Java 21, which means we need to upgrade our build to be using 21. To use version 21 of Java, you need to be using the latest version, or like, well, at least a more recent version of Kotlin plugin. So this, the Android AGP, which is Android Gradle plugin, which is this version here, and you need to be using a newer version of Kotlin. So I'm updating these. I was hoping not to have to update the entire thing, but now I'm just saying, it's now saying, well, the NDK version that we're trying to use is version 16, is 16 above, where you can only use 21 and above on this version. Just like it's just snowboarding. Interesting enough, we were building this and this didn't have that problem. But this is using the new build system, which I don't really want to have to transition to. I'm gonna just suppress it. I'm just gonna suppress it. I think they've got and pretend it's not a problem and it's not going to cause bugs right now, and then I'll fix it later. But hopefully this means
the blinders up.
It compiles now. Let's see.
There you go.
So yeah, it's complaining because I haven't upgraded. Yeah, there we go. So 23, but you actually need to do 26. Interesting. Okay, well, maybe I don't need to get rid of that, but let's change our NDK version. Yep, let's try that again. And maybe I don't need the suppression actually now. Let's put suppression. Try again. This is the thing, right? So when you're building an app, let's say on Android, for example, why is this saying there's an error? Because we have a really old version of a dependency. I have not updated any of these dependencies and I don't know how long. So I guess we're just going to go update them all and see what we break.
Flutter pub upgrade.
Yeah, and well, not just upgrade. I want to actually update the versions and the things. I'm just going to go through and just do it the lame way because there is actually is there a Dart one that I don't know? I can't remember where it is now. Actually, this is not the way you do it, but
I do it by erasing them all, and then I get
you can then get
a solution that works. Yeah, get a solution that works, and then I have a YQ pipe that can read the pub spec lock and turn it back into YAML. So it's great. I can lock down the version numbers that way.
It's actually the what's the outdated. You can run outdated, pub outdated, and then it will tell you what versions you can max go to on all of the packages, and those are the versions you should actually put in here without having any incompatible problems. Yeah, that's actually like the best sort of way of doing it.
Yep.
And now we got some old code that I did some examples on that is now incompatible, apparently.
So live coding today is this thing about some pop scope stuff and also some things about serving HTTP2 as a server. So we're doing both of those today. It's based on a question in the chat room here. just to let everybody know that we're working on these two things for live coding. And the predecessor question is, how do you get the code compiled?
Wow, that's where we're going to get shown now. I
Yep.
don't know why this is not
Ugh.
a JObject. Do we have to do as? This is going deep into the woods on some old code, so apologies. I just want
Ugh.
to see if I can. Do you know what? I don't want to fix it, and it's the only one that's got an error, so we're just going to do this delete.
Yep.
No, actually, I don't. What we'll do is I'll comment it out. I'll just, actually, I kind of want to get that back now. Right, one thing. Let's just see if I can figure out where this call by was it JNI. This is JNI.
I would just delete.
Yeah, you can delete the Android directory and read it, but that's not going to help in this situation because it's not actually that's caused the problem. But that is a
Part
nice
of it's
way
the
of
pub spec, yeah.
That is a nice way of solving it. We're going to go just deep into the woods here a second. They must have changed this. Remove JNI accesses. Great. Cast to. So I could just take JNI to a minimum of 010. This is pre-alpha, so like it's breaking API changes. That's fine. It's expected.
Remember when alpha used to mean before beta, and there wasn't a pre-alpha.
Well, I understand.
I remember that.
It's like zero release, right? So it's
right.
just it's gonna come on. Okay, so this was changed before then. Oh, breaking change. J reference is now a pointer. Okay, cool. The following JNI access methods have been removed. So how does one call method by name? Call method with args. All right, so let's go back even further. This can't possibly go wrong. Actually, it was the last one I updated. What was it before? Hang on, let's take it back. 7.2. Oh, we can take it 7.3. That should be fine. And then problem solved. We didn't actually upgrade that package.
Oh.
Right. Let's see if it actually compiles because it may not. Right. Where were we? 23, 10. Open top level. Go. Go, team, go. Let's see what happens. Cross your fingers. No. Don't do that to me.
Still no compilation.
Yeah, but it was just nice about this.
What?
It doesn't tell us why.
Oh.
Isn't that see the compiler output for error for details? Yeah, thanks.
Compiler said nothing. I see nothing. I know nothing.
Right, let's give it one last go. Been meaning to do this actually, but so it's having a problem with the video player. Let's go take a quick look at that. By the way, everyone's gonna be getting this quite a lot recently because all the packages are getting a push, an upgrade and a push to go to the most recent versions of AGP and everything else. So you're all probably going to be seeing similar problems. We had this, back a while ago on Dart as well when there was a big push to update some versions. What was I even using before?
I love how we're all used to error message statements being of no help whatsoever. Yes.
Yeah.
And it's just karma because that's the way I write my error statement.
Yeah.
See, if I actually put debugging information in the errors I write, other than error happened and a throw something broke, which is probably I'm guilty of typing that at least more than once. At least it's not in red. Yeah, right. Red errors are worse.
Just having a problem with video player. Do I want to track this down? I feel like we're wasting everyone's time. Is everyone actually finding this helpful? Because if it is, we can continue doing this. I don't want to I'll just run it on Windows otherwise, and we can still do the same thing, but just I don't know.
Throw
Nice.
like that, Frey. Look at that. Look at that. Throw nope.
Right, because it's the Android package that we're having a problem with.
Oh.
Yeah. All right. This is where we're going to see AGP. So Android Gradle plugin 850. 252. Should we bump it down to 252 and see if that makes a difference? Let's push it down there. And give it another go. Otherwise, yeah, I may delete the Android directory and recreate it, but I have this checked in the repo at the moment. Probably should. Actually, there'd probably be an easy way of actually distributing these snippets. Actually, thinking about it now, then putting them in gists. Probably be easy and searchable.
Yeah.
Come on. Yay. We have an APK. Finally, we have an APK.
Oh, look at this.
I
had the same issue a moment ago before the stream started. Haven't solved it yet.
Were you paying attention? Did you know? Did you figure out how to solve it? We can chat. We can chat at some point, like if you need some help there. I spent 2 days recently trying to get a project to upgrade its dependencies.
Oh.
Like 2 days just trying to get the right configuration of Android Gradle, iOS dependencies, app dependencies, but just like the whole versions, because they're all. It's kind of interesting. Everything's dependent on everything else, so you have to kind of get the right concoction or the right what's the word? I don't know, like it's recipe almost, right, of all the different versions. Anyway, let's get this back to where we need to be. Right.
As they said in Red October, we need a firing solution.
Right. Anyway. Right. Okay, so here we are. Here's the app. Thank you, Frey. I hope Frey's still here. We haven't bored him to death.
Yeah. Oh, maybe yeah.
Open top level. Okay, open
5
next
minutes
level. Open next level. Open next level. And now the idea here is that when you go back, and then here, oh yeah, I'm pressing the button, right? So if I swipe back, it's taking you straight back out and not using the nested navigation. And that's the problem. Right, I've done this before. That should be the default button. I don't know, let's have a look. Let's get rid of the pop scope first of all. Joe, it's been a while since I've done this. I'm thinking maybe I'm actually wrong.
Oh.
Yeah, how it's doing that. Let's have a look.
Not you. Simon's wrong. Oh no.
Open
I better
level,
quit the
open
industry.
Hit back.
Quit the industry if Simon's wrong.
That's not bubbling down, is it? Sorry, it's not.
Huh.
The back is occurring at the system level and coming down the platform channel. All right, let's trace it. Let's see what's going on internally and see how this is supposed to be done. Because to me, the problem you're actually seeing here is that the inside navigator is not receiving the back events. The routes, where are you generating the route? On generate route. Material page route. I mean, the page route should be getting the pop event. Where is it? Modal route. I'm trying to remember where the hell it is. Yeah, local history route. Yeah, so you can do local history. Can pop of. Interesting. Oh, but we've got. I wonder if this is the change to the way that it works because of pop scope, right? As you're saying, like we now got the if you can pop or not, but then of course you can always pop in this. It's how the stream. Yeah, it's not necessarily the what we're trying to achieve here. The problem is you can do this with a single navigator. By default, though, we shouldn't have to pop the inside one. Let's follow it, right? Let's get to know the framework. So where am I? Further down here, I believe. Pop gesture enabled. If iOS style back swipe from Android. Okay. User gesture in progress is first. We'll handle pop internally. We'll handle pop internally, local history.
Preset saying something here, Frey.
When it builds, can pop true. Yeah, you need to rebuild. Yeah, sure. But that's if you want to use pop scope. But the point I'm trying to make here is you shouldn't need to use pop scope, right? I'm trying to remember where I want to follow this down. Let's understand how the navigation stack is working. So first of all, for those that don't, let's not play 20 questions here. And let's just say, let's have a look here. So you've got the system channel, right? System channels. And system channels is basically how the platform and Flutter engine work together. So this is where all of those events that you're kind of used to. Sorry, I'll make that bigger. So all those things that you're kind of expecting from the system come through. So things here like lifestyle, key event, keyboard, back gesture. This is internal, right? Including navigation to the way that the system works, right? However, back gesture here, that's going to be referenced by some of the internals, as you can see here. Start back gesture, update back gesture progress, commit. Android U and above. What's Android U? Give me a number. 14. Okay. I don't think we're dealing with back the gesture. Well, let's have a look. Let's go back to our. Where was I? So I mean, we could actually handle this with a custom route and actually deal with the wheel hat. I mean, there's tons of ways of doing this. I'm just like, why should we be hooking it up on pop page? See, this is the difference between using Navigator 2 and also as well. So if you were to use the Pages API, then you actually don't have a problem here. Yeah. I mean, do you need to use a generate route? You're just using this for the way that you're trying to tackle things, right? Because if you're to use the Pages API, you can actually just do this quite neatly. All right, let's have a look here. Right, so yeah, can pop. Yeah, so this is evaluated when this runs through. So you're saying you can pop immediately, right? I don't think you're actually going to get what you expect from this. I mean, you can just rebuild when the navigation changes. It just I mean, you didn't have to create an observer and do a bunch of other stuff because you're doing the imperative approach. Should we just flip this out to being declarative using the Pages API for A, and then you can see how you can do the same thing with that? I feel like that probably makes more sense. Let me show you, right? If you don't mind. I think that would make way more sense in this situation. So
he's got a follow up there. Oh no, we already said that.
That's still what it was. Let's see how this goes, and then hopefully this makes sense for him. So we want a way of declaring our nested page here. So you've called it nested page. I'm going to just rename it to nested screen because the term page is used for the other types of things. And we'll have a nested page that extends I think there's a material page. Yeah. That's fine. And then this actually wants to have a child. We could do a child widget. Yeah. Now we've got onPop invoked and canPop and a bunch of other things that we can actually define here. Do I want to use material page? I guess it doesn't make that much difference. So what we were passing, you were passing in settings, was it? What were you trying to pass in? The name? Route index. So you want the index, right? So we'll pass that in. Yeah. In fact, if we do this, I have an idea. This is probably a shitty idea, but we're going to find out. Can we do this? I don't know if you can do this without having an actual constructor. Let's give it an actual constructor. Really, just do what I want. Need it's kind of nice to have the index, I guess. We don't actually need it, but we'll get that. Right. Whoops. Yeah.
Nested page blah.
This is why I say we don't actually need the index in this class because we're just going to pass it straight through anyway for the child widget to be displayed. This is just used because this uses child because we're using material page. It requires the child widget so that when it creates the route, it knows what to provide for the route itself. And that route then uses the child to actually build the content. We could actually get rid of all of this if we use a page route builder, for example, on our own custom page widget. But I feel like that's probably well, we can go there in a minute if you want. I'll show you what that's about because it's not that complicated. It probably simplifies things. But all right, anyway. So now we've got a nested page. This is like so for those that don't understand, pages are just route settings. So if you go follow this down, a page is just a route setting. It's basically the parameters that you pass to a route to display a section of your application, a screen of your application. So what's nice about this is where we've got this kind of on generate route. What we want to do, we'll say nested nav. We'll say, yep, we'll do it in here. Sure, we'll do it in here. And just say navigate to, was it an index you're passing in or something? This Index. Yep. Let me go down and see where it is. So you've got open next, push named. All right, so you're pushing a named route. That's not going to work in the situation that we're in, but that's fine. All right, so let me explain what I'm doing first of all. So sorry, I'm kind of just plowing into it, but so navigators are in sort of what's the word? Imperative, right? So basically, you tell it navigate to this route, pop this route. You're giving it actions to perform, but then it updates the visuals based on that, and it does some animations and deals with all the routes and dealing with stacks and the rest of it. Now, if you want declarative, that's where the Pages API comes in. That's where you give it a set of pages to display. You can then reorder them, and it will reorder the screens. You can then pop stuff. You can just remove an element, and it will pop it off the screen for you. The idea there is that navigation, this is what we said earlier, the navigator then replicates the state of the application. This is how Navigator 2 works. The router manipulates a set of pages, and then the navigator navigator widget displays those pages. That's it. That's as simple as it gets. We don't need to use routers to do this, right? So in this case, if we're doing nested navigation ourselves, well, we can just do that. So all we have here is pages equals, we could have nested page as our type, our base type or page or whatever. And then our initial route, as we were saying earlier, was index 1. Yeah, that's what you put down here, initial route 1, right? And we're using our own parameters. We don't have to use route names. We can do whatever we want. When we want to navigate to a new route, what we're actually trying to do is manipulate this pages array and rebuild this widget. That's all we have to do. The same way that you would adjust the state of your application anyway. So if I said navigate to in here, navigate to index, for example, we can then just say set state, pages, add nested navigation for that index. Right? That's it. We now navigate. That's as simple as it gets. Now it's about how we use the pages array. Now, if we want to access this navigate to index somewhere else in the application, well, we need to access this function. So a nice way of doing that is to have a static method on whatever the widget is or whatever. We'll call it navigate to index. And then this can now do, this takes a build context. There's lots of ways of doing this, but this is just one way. And then we can say context dot find ancestor state of type, and then call the method on this state. And we're going to look up the tree and find this type of state. And we can navigate to the index. So what this is doing, what this function is doing is it goes up this find ancestor state. You can follow it. It is actually interface a bit hard. The element is the element class is the implementer of this method. Anyway. What it does, it goes up the widget tree and finds the stateful widget that has this state type attached to it. When it finds it, it returns that widget. Just returns that state. It can be null if it doesn't find it. We're going to assume that it's always found. And if it's not found, it's an error. So we use the bang. And then we're going to call that function, literally, look, it's highlighted down here, that function down there, and call the index method. That then calls set state on this nested nav screen and updates the pages. Again, pushing up that state. So with that in mind, now what we can do is go down to our screen where we want to navigate and replace this push named with navigate nested screen, navigate to index, and index +1. So that's replacing what this is doing, right? There you go. Now, when it comes to pop, same sort of thing. We're going to do the same thing. We'll say you can actually leave that with pop, but it's going to be the imperative thing. It will pop a page if you do that. You can also push a route and it will still work because it puts the declarative stack on top of the imperative stack on top of the declarative one the navigator does. So this way you can have pop-up dialogue still work and pop-up menus and things like that. Anyway, so we can do it. We'll do it nicely. We'll say pop context something like this. This is just keeping it sound basically so that it's easy to follow. Pop Then we can make that method below. Move it up. Apologies, I'm moving around a lot. So what's pop going to do? Set state. Oops. Pages. What? Remove last, is it? Remove last. Sounds about right. There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we've done that, we can get rid of all this passing in and name route stuff. We can get rid of, we're going to get rid of that for now. Can pop. Well, what's can pop going to be set to? If pages is not empty, then you can pop a page, right? And we don't. And if well, we'll have a look at this result. I don't believe we actually need to do this, but we'll see. Hey mate, it's the other way around. We can pop when pages is empty. Sorry, I tell a lie. And if did pop, then we want to return. This is right, yeah. And then otherwise, then we didn't pop. So that meant that the outside is not popping, because remember, outside never going. So we want to pop internally. So we'll just do pop like this, pop out internal thing. So now with that in mind, that's effectively what we've got. We're just passing the pages to Navigator. We don't need a key because we're using our method to update our state. That updates the Navigator. So we can also get rid of our key. And we're now maintaining a set of pages. Obviously, I'm using these methods. There's a few other ways of doing this, but that should be what we need. Let's have a look. Update, open top level, open next. Wow. What do we do? We broke it. Something went wrong. Let's have a look. Either on pop page must be provided, or did pop. We're providing both, apparently, somewhere. Or no, we're not providing either. That's the problem. Where is it? Yeah, it's basically saying when it popped a page, if you pop a page, on did remove page. So this is if someone calls pop using the navigation pop method, then we're going to get that page come back. And it wants to know what we need to do with that. Well, that's, again, us removing the page from our pages array. I'll explain the difference in this in just a second, but let's just see if this works. Clear. Okay, that's good. There we go. Step one. Oh, step two didn't work. Why no work?
Ugh.
Back.
It knows how much work you put into it, and it says, we just got to let Simon down a little
I'm
bit.
going to do this. All right, let's see if we can trace down what we're wrong. So navigate screen. I mean, it all looked like it worked to me. Add pages, set state.
Oh, Frey's got a question here.
Yeah, well, yes and no. So we'll get back to it. Let's get this working first.
Okay.
The question here is, why is open next not adding a page? So let's put a breakpoint here. Open next. Okay. Next index 2. That sounds correct. Pages. Null. No. Well, that doesn't sound right, does it? What did we do wrong? I think we did wrong because... No, I don't know why we did wrong. Hang on. Let's follow this. Does it want a name? Is it confused because we're not giving it a name and it thinks it's the same one? Quite possible. Oh, I don't do this. All right. All right. Let's just do soup. No, it's not required. Let's stick it in there anyway. What else are we potentially missing here? on pop invoked. If you can pop it or not. Key shouldn't be needed. Right, so pages contains one entry art with the name of one. No. Hit continue. No page. Nested page index. Nested screen. It doesn't seem like our page is actually getting its route created. So look, it's not. Oh, I know what's going wrong. I fell into the equality and equals. All right, so let me explain what's going on here. Navigator sees the same pages object, and therefore nothing changed. When what actually we need to do is, we can do this a couple of different ways. We'll do it this way for now. So we have if we have like a list of page, no, we'll do var. Let's just do var. And then why is it? Could be fine. No, it can't because I'm not finished yet. So what we actually need to do is we need to set. Did you figure out? Did you see? Did you hear what I figured out there?
Yeah, I'm listening.
Good.
You could do just a ... copy and remove last with a ... But okay, you could do that too.
Yeah, I could do list of and then remove last. Yeah, I could do that. Couldn't I? Wasn't thinking straight. Yeah, no, I like that. No, let's do that. That makes more sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically we fell into the trap here, where the navigator in its we can go follow this, but in its did update widget, it goes, is this pages array equal to that page array? It just does identity match. It doesn't check a deep equals on the list. I'm going to say I'm going to caveat that with the framework team and be like, this is kind of not what's expected, right? When you're looking at the pages array, I feel like did update. Let's have a look. Yeah, look, there you go. Just does an equality. It just does a equality match. It doesn't do a list equals. The framework actually has a list equals for this kind of thing.
Sure. So that's a bug in a sense.
I mean, it's by design, but equally, I feel like that's a bug because it's not what you expect, right? So okay, there we go. Now it creates it. Hit continue. Right. Let's get back to where we were. Let's close some of these things down. Right. So we're in here, and we're going to hit next. Yay, 2. Yay, 3. So you can see here, it's doing exactly what the previous one did. That's the key, first of all. Now the question is, if we go back, it now throws an error. Yay. Right. It's because, yeah. Okay. So this is
So
a standard.
Can we generalize the thing we just discovered as you can't take the pages stack and mutate it? You can only replace it if you want to trigger things. Okay.
Okay. So the next thing is that we're doing apparently doing a set state during a build. Now I don't know if that's because of this set state here, which may not be required. So let's just see, or if it's one of the other ones. And there's ways of getting. Oh, there you go. Back. Hey, look, it's doing it. It's doing what we want. So we go in 5. We go Android back behavior. So I'm dragging from the edge of the screen. Let go. Back to 5. Back to 4.
Pretty.
Back to 3, 2. And the question here is, what happens to go to 1? One more. Okay. So we did it. I did it when it's empty. When I say this should be is length is equal to 1, right?
Okay.
So the top one, you can't pop off the stack, right? So we go back 1, 2, 3, and go back if I want to there with the button, or I use the Android back. And when I'm on 1, it pops that level.
Wow. Ship
That's what
it.
Freddie's looking to do.
Ship it.
Ship it. Done.
Ship it.
So let me just take a step further. So when on this did remove page, that's about the fact that if we didn't use our own pop and we were to use navigator of context pop, then it would pop the route internally inside of navigator. Then it would call this method, and that's where we update our state. In which case, we're mutating the same state, but that's because it's already using it. It doesn't need to rebuild. So if I now do this, it'll work exactly the same. He says, yep. And it still works. So you don't have to use your own pop method. You can just use the navigator of pop, right? But it's kind of nice to keep it all aligned. So yeah, this is how you can do your own, so think about this. If you've got, let's say in your app, you've got like a some sort of form builder or something crazy like that. And then once they get to one section, you want to pop the previous 3 screens, but you don't animate that, right? There's a bunch of ways you can do this with like keys and Navigator 1 and a bunch of other stuff. But actually with this method, you're going to have your screens and just remove these entries from the array. And that's it. That's all you had to do. You didn't have to do anything crazy, right? So you're in control of the stack, and that's what makes the Pages API really nice. You do not have to. This is part of Navigator 2 in terms of what they released. Navigator 2 is the router and the Pages API working together. You don't have to use the router. You don't have to use Go routers, for example, to do really cool things with navigation. You can use the Pages API. This is actually my very first talk on Navigator 2. You can probably Google it and find it. I should probably make a web page for my talks. Anyway,
you should make a web page with Jasper of your talks.
Yes, in fact, I've actually been playing around with Jasper recently to do some web page stuff.
There you go.
I might actually go. Maybe there's good reason to use ServerPod there as well.
Yeah. Jasper's getting smarter every day. I keep seeing new patches on it every day. So
please share a link to your talk. I don't know where it is. It's on YouTube somewhere. When did I give that talk?
It's on the tubes. It's somewhere on the tubes.
You know what? I think I can find it for you. Give me 1 second.
Okay. Here we go.
Why not? Give me 1 second.
Yeah, I'm really amazed at the stuff, and it's funny. I will frequently suggest Jasper in answers on Reddit and occasionally Discord, and people go, "I've never heard of this. This is amazing. I wish I knew it was here years ago." And I go, "Well, it wasn't here years ago, but the fact is that I think." I think he's doing a great job creating it, and he's just not pounding the pavement enough to market it, but that's fine. There's people like me that are out there talking it up. So I guess that works.
Wow.
Wow, what?
I feel old. I feel really old now. I did this talk 4 years ago.
Oh my God. That's like forever in Flutter world.
Okay. The link, don't go to it right now because you'll disappear from us, but that's the link. And if you want, there's some old live code that I used. I'll post a link to that. And also feel free to watch the slides. Let me get a link to the slides as well. There you go.
That was like while Navigator 2 was only in beta, right? That's like
look, hey man, I don't know if I should share this because it's gonna be like YouTube strike, but I can prove it's me on both.
Yeah. Wow.
Can I navigate?
How to talk to the GPS system? Wow.
Navigator 2, Pages API, declarative approach. What is it? Blah 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 blah.
Yeah,
blah blah
you
blah
said
blah,
all this.
blah 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 blah.
You said all that. Yes.
There you go. So you can
go
watch my talk because you don't want me repeating myself. But yeah, the original.
Yep.
Anyway, there you go.
Cool.
Go have fun.
I think I remember seeing that slide deck. I mean, I wasn't physically there, but at least I was.
Yeah, there's a few different things going around. So anyway, okay, so that's
Cool.
I'm going to post that code in reply to, where is it? This one, phrase one. If I fork it, will it? Now I can edit it. Yeah. Frey didn't put a license on this. So Frey, do you mind if I put a license on this just so that people can use it? In case someone's funny about that.
Put a license on there. Just put a license on there that says it's yours for $10.
I'll wait for Frey's answer before I post this.
Yeah.
Sure, go for it. Well, I've got to put your name on it, Frey, because I didn't. Just put both our names. Just put both our names. Frey, I can't do the E. Hey mate, I might be able to do the E actually. Hang on, let's see.
It's option.
Yeah,
E.
I could do it. I found out the key on my keyboard. Do Marzi. And something like that. There you go.
The problem with living in an English country is that we don't know where most of those funny keys are.
So it's interesting you say that, because on the UK keyboard, sorry, or should I say on the ISO keyboard, we have left Alt, but right Alt is called Alt GR, which is alternative graphic.
Okay.
And if you press that and E, then you're going to get the E, the QE with the line above it. And you have that with basically have that on all our keyboard, but you don't. It's not the same on the American one. If you do right shift, right Alt is treated the same as left Alt, if I believe.
Right. Yes. Unless the app actually breaks it out separately, which is possible. So
yeah, true. Okay. Where do we get to? What time is it? Want to go for half an hour?
We still got. This is only 2.5 hours in. It's not bad.
Shall we do the HTTP thingy, Bob?
Well, you can at least get started. You can show what you've got so far and talk
we can do
about
that. Yeah.
the restrictions of what you got.
Like there's probably some background to give on it. Now, let me just see if I can find.
That's what I was thinking.
There's got to be like a nice graphic to how they're different. Just something I can show on the stream. Well, I guess it's actually really, really good. This looks actually really good. Not that helpful to what I want to show, but I will post this link. I just found this. What's the difference from DigitalOcean on HTTP 1 and 2? Maybe we can look at it, but I'll post the link if people are interested. But it's going into the technical, and what I'm trying to do is just show a nice graphic. Follow me. Why is there never what you want?
Life would be too easy. We'd be bored with the fact that we're getting everything we want. Yeah.
Image. Can I? All right, we'll use this one. So HTTP 1. Let's make this one over here. HTTP 1 is request response, right? So to do a request, you get a response. You do another request, you do another response over one connection. That's what that represents over here. 1.1 allows this essentially the server to there's a name for this.
Hold on to the connection.
Yeah, hold on to the connection and reuse it. Keep alive. It has a keep alive mechanism, right? So once you've done your request, you can then continue to perform more requests, essentially, right? HTTP 2 is the same thing. It's one connection, but what you actually do is you make multiple streams. So you send packets of data down the connection, and each one is a frame that contains either data or a header, And once you receive a header and data, that is the request that you get. And then a response is the same thing. You get a data and a header back. But you can still get a header line blocking with that. Whereas HTTP3 don't get that. That's UDP. That's a whole separate thing. But that's what the next one up. But the minimum that developers should be aiming for is this HTTP2. Too often people are still settling for HTTP 1.1, and it's terrible for mobile. The best mobile experience you're going to get is 2 and 3, right? Because it means you're not getting the TCP connection management stuff. What's it?
The three-way handshake.
Handshake, yeah.
The three-way handshake. Yes.
Yeah.
Synac.
Yeah, and then you get anyway, right. So I was fiddling around in the Flutter app apparently with a server here. We're going to have a look because I can't remember what I was doing.
This will be Simon in reverse
this is
engineering.
Me rereading my code. I don't remember. So
reverse engineering.
File,
look at that.
Router. Right, we've got some handlers. So this is just shelf. Okay, so our main method, we're going to listen on 443, which is to be clear, HTTP2 is required to be secure. You can do HTTP2 without being secure, but then you're not going to be able to do HTTP1 as well. They're not. The way that they make themselves compatible is because they both use TLS as the protocol level above HTTP2 and 1. Can I publish what I've done so far? Sure, I can push this up to GitHub. Definitely, you can see here I was generating some keys for localhost, and then this is the way it works is oh damn, I forgot what it stands for. ALPN, auto something protocol negotiation. Just gonna ALPN, application layer protocol negotiation. I was close. And basically, so TLS, the way TLS works is you give it the names of the protocols that you support as a server. And when the client comes in, it gives them the protocols it supports, and then it can negotiate which is the best protocol that you both can support. Right? Does that make sense? So this is where this kind of comes in. So you can say you can support 1.1 along with 2, but 2 is higher priority than 1, right? So this creates a security context, which is a way of securing a socket. And we create the socket with that security context. And then I believe this support protocols just overrides, just does set ALPNS on the context anyway. Then we're creating a controller, and then we're listening on that stream. We then have to take, so what you see here, HTTP2 server transport protocol, is because there is actually a package called HTTP2, but on pub, but it supports, its main support is that of the HTTP2 protocol. This is written by the Dart team, this is it here, but its support is mainly in the client side and not the server side. And that's what becomes problematic because there's not a server side component to this, right? So in theory, it should work. Yeah, so in this case here, this is actually, so here, Google. So this is going to pass the port and the host from the URI. Then it's going to try and connect to google.com, makes the request, a get. Oh, and that's another thing. Sorry, the other parts of HTTP. So sorry, I'll make that bigger. It's a bit small. Just to be clear, the other parts of HTTP 1 are actually sent as headers in HTTP 2. So that's the method, the path, the schema, the authority. These bits here, these are actually sent as header parameters in HTTP 2. They prefix with a colon because they're part of the protocol. Prefixing with colon is cannot be done with anything but these. Not necessarily these, but parts of HTTP 2. And this is how this is like this separates these headers from being ones that should be processed by the application.
Right.
So make request. So this is going to make a header request, and see end stream. It is explained in that what's the difference between, it should be, well, it should be explained in this, what's the difference between 1 and 2. But basically, you might receive 5 header blocks, and they essentially all become the headers for the request, all grouped together. Because again, it's packetized up. So the end block that you receive, the end frame, has end stream flag set to true. This is how you know it's the end of the headers for that frame, right? Anyway, and then once you get this incoming stream is going to be the response from google.com. And you can see here, if you get a header stream, then you can go for the headers and display them on the screen in this case. And when you get the data, you're going to get the bytes. And then you have to look at the headers to know how to process it, which is how HTTP works, right? This is just broken up in a different way. And then you can then finish your transport and not send any more requests, or you could send more requests by making a request, right? This is the client side. Now, this is not how you're going to process the client side. This is no good for Shelf. What you actually need to do is group together all your header responses that you get back. So if I look at header stream message in the API definition here, you'll see, you'll see that it has the end stream flag. What you're actually supposed to do is receive all the header stream messages, join them up together into one map, essentially, until you get the end one. Now you know it's the end of the headers for that request. Then you do the same for data effectively. Now you could process all the headers and then process the data as a stream of packets coming in. So a data stream message, and you'll get the end flag when it's the final flag of that final bit of data that you get from the stream. Does that kind of make sense, Randall? In your mind,
does that mean you should be able to pass around some sort of stream to some subroutine functions that are going to manage the actual stream consumption? Okay, cool.
Yes. So here, this is the kind of interesting thing, right? So the way HTTP1 request and response work in like Shelf and everything else is they work on streams, right? So where is it? It's going to be the one time. Did I just miss it? Didn't think so. No, give me a second. Let me scroll and confuse everyone. Now, body is an object here, but body can be a stream of bytes. They get a stream of list of int. And this is how you can have a stream of data coming in, going in a request, and stream of data coming in a response. So if you want to send a file, you can literally do pipe, use the pipe function to actually take a file and stream it out on a request, on a HTTP request. And you can do the same in the response. Very efficient, and it means that you're working at the block level. A lot of people go, well, I said people, a lot of developers will just go read a file into memory and then output that file on, in one go, which means you end up rewriting. It's terribly wasteful. Let me explain this for a second. It means that, let's say you got 1 gigabyte video that you're trying to upload. Well, now you're taking 1 gigabyte of RAM to read in a file. Well, let's hope they have a gigabyte of RAM, or you're going to run out of memory. And then once you've done that, you now need to put that in another object, which might mean you need to copy that data. Now in memory, you need to copy 1 gigabyte. Now you're going to use 2 gigabytes, at least temporarily, until the previous gig frees. It's just not practical, right? And most things are relatively small, within a few hundred megabytes. That's within the realms of RAM, right? And that you're not going to get out of memory. But too many developers, they don't think about streaming data and processing data in streams, and it's very important to do so, especially when it's very efficient as well, especially when you're dealing with files and data access and networking. They're designed for that. So that's why you see this in these kind of things inside the APIs, the various packages and so on. Anyway, back. I've kind of gone off on a rant here. Anyway, right.
It gets complex when you deal with data like YAML. There's a YAML stream format that allows you to chunk related YAMLs together within one stream, for example.
Yeah.
But you need to actually use that as part of your source generation. Same thing with XML. XML can actually be processed as a stream, event stream, rather than using it as you have to parse the entire thing into memory at once. So it's kind of cool.
So All right, so let's follow this on for a second. So, as we saw in that diagram, which I conveniently closed,
The picture of 1.1 and 2.
Yeah, let's use this as our little.
There we go.
Can I make this like small
Just-
so it's forever?
Just feed that into Gemini and say, here's the
Make do
source
this.
code. Make
Yeah.
it do this. Yeah, that says Gemini.
Oh, it's behind us. Sorry. There you go. Right.
Oh,
So
here's a question. Does Shelf support pause resume by default? That's interesting.
HTTP does,
Mhm.
but Shelf does not expose it, as far as I remember. And I meant to pick this up with. You just reminded me. You want to pick this up with Kevin, who's the package owner. I'm going to make a note because I keep forgetting, and I don't want to forget. This is Shelf pause and cancel. So for those that don't know, I don't, does it say pause? Does it say pause resume? I mean, sorry, I got confused there for a second. It's actually cancel I was thinking of. You can just pause and resume, but you don't have to pause. You just stop sending data. The connection's still open, and you can just, whenever you want, continue. You don't have to pause resume. That's maybe I'm misconstruing what you're asking for there. Maybe a bit more specific, Ray.
I think it's probably on the upload. You have to be able to pause. You have to be able to tell
but you just stop uploading data. I mean, it's up to you, right? You just don't send any more data on the socket, right?
No. Is there a way to make the Shelf server be able to tell your client that it doesn't want any more data for a second?
Oh, when I like when I want to upload big file. You mean you want to do resumable uploads? Yes, is that what you're asking?
Well,
so resumable uploads is not down to Shelf. It's not. Yeah, it is. That's what he's asking for. Yeah, that's resumable uploads are down to the server. The server receives an extra header called range that has a list of bytes. It has a range of how many bytes that you're uploading as part of this request. So you can say this. The rest of the file is this from this offset where I last started uploading to the final bit, right? And then you upload that data, and it will write that. It's up to the server to write that in the correct place inside the file. That is resumable uploads. Google Cloud Storage supports this. So does AWS storage support this. So that way, if you've got large videos and stuff and your connection gets disconnected, which happens on mobile, you can resume the upload. This is very common to do on mobile. So that's resumable uploads. You can go search resumable uploads. But yes, Shelf supports that because it's just a header, right? It's up to you as the author of the application on how you want to, where you want to send those bytes of data. Anyway, back to this. We're straight off the point here. So let me hide that. There we go. So remember, in this diagram, we're showing a connection, and then we got the stream. So in this case, we got two purple bits of. It's kind of complicated because you've got levels here, right? You've got the connection itself, which is the socket. Then you've got your HTTP connection within that socket, and then you've got your frames within that. Okay, so in this case, what we're doing here is when we listen to the socket, when someone connects to our socket, we say what protocol did they negotiate. If they negotiated 1.1, well, we're going to add this socket. This is not the server side socket. This is now the new socket that's been generated, which links to that particular user, that client that's connected to us on the network. So we add that to the 1.1 controller, and it can go and do its 1.1 thing. If it's version 2 or 2.14, which is a late revision, then we're going to create a transport server connection via that socket. And what this is going to do is create that connection that handles the framing. And this is built into that library that we've already got, the HTTP2 library. So we don't have to worry about that. And then when we get the incoming streams, so this is when a stream starts, then we're going to add that stream to our controller, because now we're dealing with one request. So as I said, it's one connection with multiple streams of data chunked up into frames, right? So each stream of data has an ID attached to it. That's how we know. Each frame that's sent over has an ID attached to it that tells it what stream it's part of, what stream of data, right? That's how you know the frames joined together. So anyway, that's all done for us by this magical server transport connection, right? And what we're going to get is we can listen to the incoming streams, and what we're going to get here is a server transport stream. And this is well, first of all, it's a transport stream. So this is the ID I mentioned. You get your list of incoming messages and outgoing messages, which are I said frames, but that's kind of, they call them messages in here. And then has it been terminated? You can terminate it, and also send headers back, send data back. And also, because it's a server stream, you can ask, does it support push, which allows us to just push data back down when it didn't make a request. And if it does, then you can push headers back. And this allows us to push metadata back down to the client. So think notifications that like push notifications that the user needs to receive. You can send push with those request headers, and then the user can then make a request for whatever data it's for, right? All right. So back. So we're going to listen to that, add it to the second controller. Then if it's not one of those protocols, then we're going to destroy the socket. We don't expect this negotiation. And if some error, we're just going to error out. This is all just hacked together. I should be closing the stream subscription and managing this properly within something. This is just hacking them together, see how it works, right? Once we start up our secure socket listener, we also want to listen on a different port. This is port 80. So this would be where the 1.1 server is listening on. And when those requests come on, we're going to handle the request. And this hands off to shelf. So we listen to the HTTP2 controller, and when a new stream comes in, we want to handle that stream. So as I said, when one of these streams comes in, and that's what this piece is doing, which is further down. We'll get there in a second. That's going to piece things back together into request and response, and then push them over to shelf. So we can treat a HTTP2 connection as a 1.1 processing and still use shelf to process HTTP2, which was the original author. The original question heading was, does shelf support HTTP2? I think it was the original question. So this is going to start up, and you can see here, controller is just a stream controller wrapper and a HTTP2 server. And this is what I think the bit code I was working on last. It's a while ago. Yeah, this is where we're serving HTTP2 server. And this is the same as above, by the way. I think I pulled it out for testing. Whereas it handle stream, this is the bit. So this is where I was just printing lots of stuff and testing things out, right? But in essence, this is when we get a transport stream come in, we want to listen to the incoming messages, and then we want to start piecing the incoming messages together. So we're going to put all the request headers together as they come in, and we're going to put all the data together as they come in. And as soon as we get an end message, which I've now realized probably is a bug, and I think I just realized why this wasn't working. That's good, right? So
yeah.
In fact, yeah. So we get an end stream, but we get an end stream. Do you know what? I'm not sure. We should be getting an end stream. I'm wondering if this needs to be only happening on the data, which means that might explain whilst I couldn't get this working, because the headers get sent, then we end the stream trying to send stuff back without passing the data, maybe. Anyway, so this is going to put together really badly, the data that comes in the headers. And then once it ends, we're going to pass out the relevant headers that we want, and to build up a request for shelf. And then we're going to pass it over to the shelf handler. And when we get a response back from shelf, we're going to then send those headers back that we got back, and then read the response data. And in this case, we just buffer it up and send it back. But really, we want to send this back in chunks. And the final chunk we send end. And I haven't bothered doing that in here, but yeah. And then the incoming subscription can be cancelled, and the outgoing messages can be closed, right? Because we're no longer using that stream. So that's effectively what I can see at the moment, how this works. I think, if I remember rightly, I was having failures on it, and I couldn't work out why. And think that's where I parked it. But anyway, that is the full server implementation. The client implementation is pretty straightforward. That's just us doing what was on the example website, really, what you saw, which is we're going to connect to local host. We're going to try and connect to the socket and send some headers and data and see how it goes. So strictly speaking, you yeah, this is actually should be HTTPS, but it doesn't matter because we're not using the schema actually saying that. But this is going to host and port, and it's treating port 8080 as secure. It's only going to work actually if I override 8080, but I'm not. I may be using something else. I think I wanted to. I can't remember where I got to this now, so apologies. Test. Maybe 8080. Yeah. So local host. All right. I mean, we can try this, right? We can try and fiddle around with this a bit more. Does it helpful to make a video call? What? No idea what you're talking about. All right. Well, is HTTP2 good for video calls? If that's what you're asking, then yes. I mean, well, HTTP3 would actually be better, but whatever. There's other protocols that are better utilized right now for video calling, and that's RTP and RTP-based protocols. That's real-time protocol, and it's designed for that purpose. Right. All right, let's debug a server. Listing on port 443 and client. So the question here is, this is not going to be a secure client. And I want to do a secure right, secure socket, connect. Do I? Yeah, on bad certificate. So you shouldn't do this in production, but we're going to do it here because I have self-signed and I don't think it's going to work, and I can't be bothered fixing it right now. So we're just going to return back. Return back.
What, true? You're not using Let's Encrypt for everything?
Yeah, but again, you have to deal with the Let's Encrypt protocol, which is fine, and probably will do that. But can expect it. How does you return to continue with the connection? Cool. Return true. There you go. Perfect. Supported protocols. H2. Okay, and then that's gonna create client socket over that. And there you go. And that's where we allow pushes from the server. Current stream limit, window size. Interesting. Right. Let's see what happens if we run the client and debug that. Okay. Do we actually return back what we get back? Did that just work? Am I hey a minute. Content of 14 data. Incoming message. That's what we got back from the server. Hello world. Why not use you can use our HTTP if you want to.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, use whatever you want.
Yeah.
The difference here is our HTTP is using Rust. You don't have to think about native compilation. You have to think about how you're going to get Rust working in your maybe your tool chain or anything else. You might also think about what platforms does that package support. You may not support the embedded platform you're trying to work on or whatever it might be. And you have to do some Rust code. And you can also just leave it in Dart. I mean, you talk about benchmarking performance here. At what performance does it? What point does it actually make a difference? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, are you trying to surface bajillion messages a second? Well, then, yeah, use RHTTP, right? Like, these was practical. All right. Anyway, back to this. Strangely enough, I think it just worked.
Oh, cool.
So the question I have is probably one of, does it just work in the browser? Because it should just work.
It should fall back to protocols that the browser understands, right?
See, this is what I got before. HTTP2 protocol error. And yeah, look, bad unknown certificate, bad handshake. And it didn't like my thing. It still performed the request.
It didn't know the secret fraternity handshake.
And then we get our actual, packet stream come through. Pardon me, stream come through with the headers, with the schema, with all the relevant browser headers. Multiple requests. And then it obviously tries 3 times or something, and it fails 5 times. I don't know. Is this 5 times? It seems to be related to this, though, which is part of the built-in certificate unknown. And is that because the certificate secure handshake? This is internal. This is native code that's failing, right? This is the C code within the TLS system itself. So is this trying to do something different to what we're expecting? I mean, again, we shouldn't be using SSL v3. I wonder if this. It just occurred to me. Actually, it just occurred to me what might be wrong. Question mark. Hang on. I wonder if this requires the TLS protocols. No, this is ALPN. Yeah, so no, this is ALPN. Questions must be asked. Is server true? Yeah, I'm going to dig this one out. It's something obviously to do with the way the client, way the Chrome client is working. Who was it that was looking for this code?
Ray.
I've installed the system. Yeah, I mean, Sherry, I've already installed the system CA, and I was already doing that. I have to dig this one out. I might go look at the boring SSL source code there and see what's actually going on.
Yeah. I think we
we're
handled it all. Yep.
Park it there. We're definitely at
3 hours.
Hopefully people learned.
We need to decide something for next Wednesday, though.
Oh, the time start time.
Do we want DST according to the UK or according to the US?
Does that mean it's an hour earlier for us, an hour later for me?
Yeah, if we go according to the US, then you're going to start an hour later than you expect, just this one time.
That's fine. Europe's okay with 6 p.m. It's easier for Europe to do it a later time than an earlier time, right?
Yeah. Okay. So we will still be 9 a.m. Google time, Google headquarters time next week,
It'll be 6
which will
p.m.
be 1 hour off because it's going to be
6 p.m. UK,
hours.
7 p.m. CET.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. For next week. So it's 167 hours between shows, which is 164 hours from now. Because we're 3 hours in.
I'm going to post that HTTP2 code for the server,
Okay. Right.
which is, I don't know if it's hardly working, but I'm going to post it in my gists so that people can, whoever the questioner was, can actually go and start fiddling with it if they're interested. And then we'll call it a night. Give me a moment. We'll do that. Or day, depending where you're from, I guess.
Yes. Yes. So for the rest of the world, I guess it's going to be off by an hour from what it normally is. It's only the U.S. that are going to be on the actual regular time.
Surprise, surprise.
That's weird. That's okay though. At least it's consistent for me. I don't have to change my calendar. Like my calendar matters, but it's kind of nice. I guess I would have it locked down in my calendar as being an offset from London time if I really cared, which I don't.
What do you mean you don't care about London? How dare you not care about London?
I care about London in general, just not necessarily what time they're having. I mean, every clock system that I have, I add Reykjavik to it. And why do I add Reykjavik? Because it's the only major city that is on UTC year round.
So for some reason,
it's great for having a UTC time, like if you're doing stuff with pilot stuff.
Did anyone get the link on YouTube?
Which link?
The just GitHub link. The just link I posted.
I see it, but that's because I'm seeing it as the guy.
Yeah, but I'm seeing it coming through on Twitch. No, it did come through. It did come through on YouTube.
Yeah, I see it on YouTube.
Yep, there you go. I see it now. Sorry,
what's India versus Europe? It's going to be 1 hour later for 1 week.
Yeah, it'd be an hour later. Then,
but in India doesn't go DST, does it? So
no, but that's what I'm trying to say. Neither are we yet. That's why it's an hour later, right?
So it's an hour later. It'll be an hour later, and then back to normal time.
Back to normal time the week after.
But only if you do DST later. DST is horrible. Figure it out.
For another time.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone for joining us. We'll see you again similar time next week.
Watch the skies.
Yeah, I'll schedule the show actually sooner so you can make sure you're ready for it. Anyway,
yeah.
all right.
Yeah.
Bye for now. Bye everyone.
Bye. Goodbye everybody.